Live.
Madam Mayor, it's 6:01 and we are live.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, December 15th, regular City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso,
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell,
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would everyone rise for the invocation led by the Vice Mayor, followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Robinson.
A moment of silence, Madam Mayor, for the people we've lost due to COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move on to additions, deletions, reordering. Madam City Clerk.
Madam Mayor, there is one reordered item, and it is the appeal that was under new business A, I believe has been moved to directly after the first presentation by the value of the electric utility.
Ask why.
Okay.
It's just the reordering was done to just accommodate all of the people that are at the appeal. There's several attorneys and people that are going to speak.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. All right, we're going to move on to our presentations. And that would be the value of the electric utility up first. Ed, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Madam Mayor. And
Good evening, Ed.
I do have joining me on the phone tonight, Jacob Williams, General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of the Florida Municipal Power Agency, an agency which we're a part of and has brought great value to the city. Jacob, I don't see his picture up on the screen yet, but I believe that he is here, and I'll be screen sharing. Do we have him in the waiting room? Can he join the call?
Yeah, I just added him.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So while Jacob is to join in, that might be him now. We put together this presentation a few months ago, and I see Jacob coming up on the screen now. But this was an attempt to provide the city some background information on just how valuable our electric utility is to the city of Lake Worth Beach. FMPA has been doing these presentations around the state for the members, and it's very educational, very illustrative of the value that we all bring to our communities. So seeing Jacob on the screen now, I'll turn it over to Jacob. And Jacob, I have the presentation up and I can toggle through it from my end.
Okay, great. Great. Well, thank you all for allowing us to participate in this and to help describe the significant value that the Lake Worth Beach utility provides to the city. And Ed, if you want to click to the next slide. Ed and his team have done a wonderful job in continuing to grow the value the Lake Worth Beach utility provides the community. And we did a detailed study, and Ed went to great detail to fully understand this and work with the team. Ultimately, we look at around $14 million of value are being brought back to the city every year because of the electric utility. And over time, that's only going to grow. It comes in the form of many different things that the city provides, whether it be the city, the general fund transfer. There are a number of other charges that the city collects from the utility, about $4 million. Faster restoration of power, especially during hurricanes, job impacts, clean power, and then the local decisions that you all make every day to run the utility and the decisions that are made locally for the city. So if Ed, you want to flip forward to the next slide. What is unique to Lake Worth Beach, and I know Michael and Ed have done a great job in terms of branding Lake Worth Beach Utility, is you are on a path to be the most carbon-free supplied electric utility in the state, and yet be very low cost. And that is an interesting combination that no other utilities can claim in the state. If you look out to 2025, you're in a position that greater than 50% of your supply, our supply, will be carbon-free by 2025, and that you'll have improved your CO2 footprint by 50% since 2005 to 2025. You want to put a math on that in terms of dollars per ton for CO2 at $20 a ton, a conservative number, that's worth about $1.7 million. But the bigger thing is it helps brand your utility. So you've done that because of your nuclear participation in the nuclear plus the solar that Ed has led to. But you haven't sacrificed low cost rates to do that. And, it's a very unique position to be in. Usually you don't get the two lined up, but you have. And you set the tone that in the next 5 years you get there. Your rates are competitive now, and your costs are looking to climb by as much as $9 million annually by 2027. Lake Worth Beach today's rates are lower today than they were in 2006, while on average the US rates are up by 26%. So, think of all the things that we have, and to say your prices are lower today than they were in 2006 is outstanding. And Lake Worth Beach includes a number of things in their rates that frankly competitors don't. You don't charge for credit card processing fees, things like that are embedded in your rate structure. In addition to that, you provide about $4 million of economic value just through the people who work at the utility, who live in the community. They spend there, the multipliers that go on from local spend is great. The reliability of the system is improving and will further improve with the SHRIP program that Ed has masterfully led you all through, and in the investments you've made for reliability, and with your $100 million of financing, of which is going to help significantly. The city transfer around 25% of the city revenue comes from the electric utility and the local decisions you make. And if you want to flip to the next one, on the solar in particular, Lake Worth Beach is in a position by 2024, as that is, and you all have made the decision, put 38 megawatts of your system supplied by solar. 40% of your peak load will be provided by solar via your local project, and then the large municipal backed project. You are by far the leader in the state in terms of the solar footprint. You and TECO are out there in front. You've got by far the highest number of watts per customer in terms of solar footprint by 2024, well ahead of others who make bigger splash, but you all are doing it on your size at a scale that's remarkable. So what does that mean? That means in terms of between that and your ownership in St. Lucie nuclear plant, you're driving your CO2 emission rates for electricity. You're going to cut it in half between 2005 and 2025 to levels that are well below the state's average. And Ed, if you want to flip to the next chart here, you can see in 2025, your emission rate per megawatt hour will be a good 15 to 30, 40% below many of the other utilities in the state. So it's an outstanding position to be in, and yet to still be very much a low cost provider and a true leader in the state of Florida, where not many people have that opportunity to lead the way you are. Next slide, Ed. And again, if you look at your footprint and where things are, if you look at some of the proposed legislation that was out, and of course that'll all change with new administration, and each Congress has a different proposals out there, but where they were shooting to target CO2 levels at, Lake Worth Beach is going to be well below the 2025 levels that people were talking about as a target. So, you're well positioned to be a leader in the United States, which is, again, something to be noteworthy and to hang your hat on there.
Let me, Jacob, let me jump in and add something for the benefit of the audience too. Since this slide was put together, the OUC, which is the majority owner and operator of the largest coal plant in the state, in which we are a participant and have been for many, many years, has made the decision to go ahead and repower those units off of coal to natural gas, starting with Stanton 1 which will be converted to natural gas by the end of 2025. So we want to thank FMPA for their leadership, and not only for the oil requirements project, but for the other participants in the projects and OUC for helping drive that decision. So that 518 number that you see there in 2025 will go even lower with the conversion of that coal unit over to natural gas. So that's the good development that we have coming.
It's a great development, and it's a great development for two reasons. One is emissions. The other is it's actually a lower cost source of power for you in the community. So that coal generation, actually converting it to gas, is going to reduce the prices, which leads to the next slide that we have here. We start talking about electric rates. I know through the summer, you all talked about where Lake Worth Beach was in terms of residential bill comparisons and the like. And in very competitive with FPL, you've worked hard to have your residential rates there. You're very competitive and lower than the IOU average, the investor-owned utility average in the state. And you're below the municipal average in the state. So you all have done a great job in that arena. And that's 2019. Obviously 20 and beyond, your rates are even doing better, but this is full calendar year for 2019. And you've made some great progress. If you look at the history, and don't like to remind everyone of painful places, but you know, the munis in Lake Worth Beach were in the same boat. Prices got real high in 2009-10, and you fought your way back and lowered rates and have done a wonderful job of driving costs down tremendously from the 09 highs of probably 30-40% reduction since then. And you see how that compares to what the prices in the United States in general have been going up. So you've bucked the trend, and you're now well below the US average in terms of rates for residential customers. Obviously in a state that you know, we use a lot of electricity for air conditioning, we use a lot more electricity than does customers, let's say in California, New York. Price really matters to your customers, and you've done a great job of looking out, and Ed continues to drive forward on that. Now, if you, and you know, the recent history compared to your local neighbor, your local IOU neighbor there, their rates since 2016 have went up by 6%, while your rates have went down by 7%. And it is likely we're going to see a rate increase from FPL will be filed soon. It's the rumblings we have. They're doubling their transmission investment in the state to around $6 billion in the next 5 years. They're storm hardening everything, and they've got major investments going on. So we expect them to continue to go through rate increases, which will give you a little bit of maybe relief in terms of competitiveness. You'll be able to make some choices down the line that you can stay competitive and do some of the investments you're looking for. So not only have things moved in your favor now, but they're probably going to move that way for the next several years. And then want to end on a couple notes. We talked about where you've been, and here's where you're going. You've got three very definable ways that costs are coming down for your power supply at Lake Worth Beach. One is just simply the St. Lucie nuclear plant debt is retired at the end of 2027. That's a $5 million a year savings. You know, you can bank on it because the bonds are paid off and you'll make no more bond payments. And right now you're paying around $5 million a year for those bonds. So a big savings there. The second one is something Ed and team have worked long and hard for, is to reduce the steam generation cost in the city there. And that project comes to fruition once we get the transmission line upgrades and all of that done in around, it'll be around $2.5 million a year in annual savings there. And then the last one was to the point that Ed and I were talking about originally, was the Stanton coal plant is converting from coal to gas. When that happens and we structure those costs, you're looking at a minimum $1 million a year savings to the community. And it could be higher as we go into the second phase of that project to get both units converted over. So these are very definable cost savings you've got in front of you, which essentially reduces the city's cost by around, the wholesale power cost by around 33%. So quite a bit of savings coming your way.
So to add a little bit more perspective to this, we have these estimated annual savings that have been modeled into the Stantec models, which you've seen during the budget process. And at the same time, we know that we did a bond issue, a very successful bond issue with an A2 rating from Moody's, and we raised over $100 million from that bond sale. That was then used, as you know, to refinance or restructure, pay off some existing debt. and restructure the financial portfolio. So what we've been able to do then is to take advantage of these reductions in long-term costs to accommodate the additional bond payments that we're taking on, which are going back into the facility in terms of in the way of capital improvements. So the system hardening reliability improvement can then be implemented without rate shock to our customers. So we don't have any immediate plans for rate increases. We've been able to accommodate that within the restructuring of the portfolio. So the roll off of these costs accommodates the addition of the new debt, which pays for the system hardening reliability improvement project. So it's a very efficient restructure, refinancing, re-engineering of the financials of the utility.
And I guess just to point to the certainty to which you've got these cost savings, one is here's the scheduled bond payments, and you see in 2026, the last bond is paid off. St. Lucie in 2027, the price of power goes down significantly for St. Lucie nuclear plant. Now, Ed, before you guys got the financing for the city before the Stanton news came out, because now you've got certainty around the Stanton cost reduction coming in because that conversion is going to take place. So these aren't just hopes. These are truly plans that are in place and they're moving to happen. And so, congratulations to you and the team and the utility. The city's got quite an asset here, and you set the stage well for the next 10 to 15 years. So with that, Ed, I think this is where you're picking up on the local community part.
Yes, thank you very much, Jacob. And Jacob will remain on the line here for a few more minutes if we have any questions. But as we continue with slide 14, our utility operations does provide 86 local jobs. So those are folks, some of which actually live in the community. Many live within 30 minutes and are here obviously every single day. That income that is generated from those 86 local jobs does stay in the community. And I'll also add that the $44+ million that we're going to invest in infrastructure over the next 2+ years will be spent with contractors who are local and IBEW labor, which reside in a radius of the city. So it's bringing a lot of economic activity into the city. There is a benefit, of course, to that multiplier, as Jacob mentioned, that and says, hey, the X amount of dollars are being spent in and around the community. Some of that accrues to the benefit of businesses and real estate values in the city of Lake Worth Beach. We talked about the utility transfer to the general fund quite a bit. When we put this together, it was going to be in the range of 4.2 to 4.5. We now know that in the adopted budget, it's 4.5 for fiscal 21. If you take a look at the total transfers between the general fund transfer and shared services, we're around 15+%. We did some math today. It's around 16+% of the general fund is coming directly from the electric utility over to the city. If you were to compare that to the franchise fee that the city were to receive if it did not own its own utility, that franchise fee would be about 6% on roughly $52 million of revenue, which would be about a little over $3 million. So the significant contributions that the city is receiving from the electric utility today are greatly in excess of what it might receive if it was only getting a franchise fee from some other utility provider in the city. Also point out that in those franchise fees, the 6% is a typical average, and recent experience in other municipalities who have gone through a transition have yielded lower franchise fees than the 6% that we've used in this case. So as a part of this SHRIP project that we've all talked about quite a bit, we've made a big leap in our storm protection and reliability. And we're not just repairing or rebuilding the infrastructure that we have. We've made the decision to design around a Category 5 storm. So a lot of the work that we're doing is not just fixing things that are broken immediately, but upgrading as we touch things to go to a much higher standard. We're also bringing in a second transmission line, which you've all talked about quite a bit, and we'll be providing you with more of an update on that in the January timeframe. Adding technology to reduce outages. So the whole goal of it is to not only reduce the number of outages, but when you do have outages, reduce the number of affected customers. For the customers that are affected, bring them back to service as quickly as possible. The way to do that is by adding technology. Our system is an older design. It's radial in nature, and there's not a lot of automated workarounds to quickly restore power to the areas that are not broken, if you will, to route power around areas of failure. So the new system design, as we roll it out, will include a lot of these technology improvements, reclosers, field switching, the ability to bypass trouble spots. We've also done a lot of hardening in trouble spots that are known for animal contacts and vegetation contacts. So we've done an awful lot of tree trimming, cleaning up of the canal banks. A lot of you have probably seen the black plastic wraps that we've installed on the poles in 3 places. We've done thousands of those already throughout the city to make it more difficult for the critters to climb the pole and come in contact with our wires. And we're also converting to higher operating voltage. What that does is it reduces what we call thermal stress on the conductors, which makes our system more reliable. One of the perceptions that this is work that's coming, that's down the road, that we're going to be doing. The fact is that we've already started this work. Some of it has been underway for well over a year. We've been doing as much as we can with our own crews as we awaited the improvements or awaited the capital funding to be available. So our own crews have done some conversions along the coastal area. We've also been doing a lot of work out in the western parts of the territory, particularly those areas served in the unincorporated county and in the village of Palm Springs. We'll be doing a lot of work out there. That work is already underway, and you see crews out there every day, 6 days a week doing these projects. And of course, we've already installed and have virtually 100% operational an entirely new SCADA system. That's a fancy way of saying how we control its system and gather data on how it's operating. So the system that our operators over in system operations, Jason Bailey's team, use, that's been upgraded to a new system. I'm going the wrong way here. Okay, reliability. So we looked at our reliability numbers for 2019 as we put this together. We had made some significant improvements. We used the surrounding utility as a benchmark, and you can see that we had made some nice improvements in how we respond to outages and in the time that it takes us to restore customers. Now that, frankly, when you see our 2020 numbers, they're not quite as good as the 2019 numbers, but we did have some improvements. The 2020 numbers, which we haven't finished yet, we still have more time in the year to wrap up the results and then get them over to you in a future presentation. They begin to show that the biggest things we have to do are to change the basic design of the system. So while we've made great strides in removing the operating issues on a daily basis, and I think, knock on wood, you all see fewer and fewer outage notifications. When we do have some of the outages where the system design comes into play, they're still significant. So the SHRIP project is going to help us get at those fundamental basic design issues that are in the system, that are the legacy issues that date back to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. For customers who did lose power, for example, during some of the storms, and a lot of how we're judged, it goes by how quickly we restore. And this is the case not only for Lake Worth Beach, but also for municipal utilities around the state. Municipals tend to be able to restore customers after storms quickly than the larger investor-owned utilities. That's particularly important or valuable because we're very local. We're in a concentrated area, and we have together with the contractors that we bring the ability to get to these smaller spots quicker, and we know our systems better, we know our customers better, and we can more quickly respond. When we take a look at just how much money the utility does contribute to the city, it's not all in the general fund transfer, which we talk quite a bit about, but there's other bits and pieces of costs that the utility helps support that are throughout the budgets. For example, the shared services or shared admin services for 2019 was a little over 1.8 million. For 2020, fiscal 21, that number is now a little over 1.9 million. So that's gone up. The electric utility also covers portions of salaries of people throughout the city that are not paid through the general fund or not paid through the shared admin service function. We pick up an additional $220,000 plus to support other positions in the city that do provide services to the utility in some form. As indicated here, there's also the credit card processing fees, the city is unique, certainly in the state and absolutely in the county, in that the city absorbs the cost of credit card fees when customers pay their bills by credit card, whether that be for water or sewer or electric. And up until this current fiscal year, those costs were borne 100% by the electric customer. The electric utility is also covering the cost of operating various city properties, which it shares with others. And that number is about $1.1 million in combination of covering the utility costs and the liability insurance and the operating fees for those various facilities. We also pay for vegetation management. Most people think the utility is just out there trimming trees to keep them clear of the wires. But the electric utility, in fact, also together with the water and sewer utility, also clears and mows all of the alleys within the city limits. That's all paid for out of the utilities function. So these are all things that would not be normal, would not be covered by another utility if the city chose to go with a different service provider. The city is also benefiting for about $626,000, a little over $600,000 a year in additional fees that come in from sharing audit fees for the city, the IT services function that the city utility helps support, and also the, if you will, the fleet services or garage functions. And then, of course, there's the sponsorship that we do provide willingly, and it's a great way of communicating our brand throughout the community, for example, helping us support festivals. And we do have on order reusable shopping bags, which will be branded with both the city logo and the utility logo. I think we have a few thousand of those coming in the next few weeks, and they'll be made available to the leisure group and to various functions in the city as well. So a big one that we talked about recently was the city's support using the electric utilities resources to support the Wi-Fi project for the school system. So we made an annual in-kind contribution by waiving the pole attachment fees of over $300,000. That takes into account the fees that we would have normally charged for people to attach to the poles, and also the annual power requirements. And I think that's a great example of the value and the service that we bring to our community. Highlighted and heightened even more by the current health crisis with COVID-19, the number of children that are perhaps learning remotely and may not have the best Wi-Fi access in their homes to keep up with their schoolwork. So we think that that's a very worthwhile and appropriate thing for a city-owned utility to provide. In terms of kind of the soft issues, there is a lot of value also in controlling and home rule and controlling your own destiny to some extent. So you as local elected officials have immediate access not only to me, but to my staff and the city manager, to help ensure that the things that are very important to you and to the constituents and to the residents and customers in our city are addressed much more quickly than they might be otherwise. So our local needs are what drive us every day. So we're tuned into what our community needs, and we address that very, very quickly. So we're not part of a 5 million customer or 10 million customer base. We're part of a 27,000 to 40,000+ if you count water customer base, and we bring you immediate response and accountability. There's no question that our customer service function needs improvement, and a lot of that's driven by the technology that we have available to us. And we are making investments in that area as well, and we'll be bringing you some more things in the future to continue to improve that. We have greatly expanded our call intake capability by using a national provider with a larger footprint, and they have availability of our IT systems to get into our customer information systems, for example, and also to be able to watch our AMI data and turn customers on and off remotely. So that's improving. But frankly, we do have way too many calls coming in, and that can be reasonably handled in a short period of time, but we're making improvements in that area. I think probably the best thing we can do there is limit the number of reasons they need to call us, and that comes from reducing outages. Okay, so that wraps up that portion of the, I'll stop the sharing then so you can see us in real life, and we'll take any questions that you may have.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Ed, are you still there? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just had one question. Can you talk a little bit more about the credit card fees? Because we've addressed that a couple times up here, and no other cities, businesses are taking on that expense. How close are we, and where are we with actually trying to figure out how to fix that?
We've gone through a number of steps. We do have the consensus. For example, we have taken this to the Utility Advisory Board, the Electric Utility Advisory Board, and we have a consensus of that board. They haven't had quorums actually at the meetings, but there is a strong consensus among that group that this is something that we should do. So Franco Polito, our customer service function, and I know that our finance department is now looking at this and how to make that happen. Not just from us saying, hey, we want to do it, but implementing it, making sure that all is proper with the credit card companies, and that we get the most competitive rate for our customers. So as is typical in surrounding utilities and also investor-owned utilities throughout the state, and also in other county functions, if you will, in the government, when you pay for services by credit card, the person using the credit card picks up that fee. So we just need to make sure that all of the financial components are in place, and that we've gotten the customers who may use a credit card the best convenience possible for that transaction. We don't want to see them gouged for it. We want it to be very competitive. So we're working through those. That's probably still 2 or 3 months away from reality, but we're working on it.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, that was $252,000 that we could save.
The numbers citywide actually looked at the trajectory that we're on, particularly with the use of affinity cards or the rewards cards, for example. That number was getting close to $400,000 a year by the end of fiscal 20. So that's a significant number.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate your presentation. It was, we've been working on a lot of things over the course of the last several years, and often cities are faced with, as they try to attempt to be greener, the costs that cities end up, paying to make those things happen really makes it difficult. And, you have to get a severe investment from your community to pay more money to be a greener city. And Ed and my fellow commissioners and staff and everybody, through all of your help, we've been able to, we created a rate parity ordinance. I saw there was $4 difference, Ed. Always looking at those numbers, but expecting that increase. But when you look at that in our carbon footprint and what we've been able to do, not only building our own solar farm, but also our investment in solar, as we move forward, it's a statement that we encounter probably as sitting commissioners on a regular basis going out into the community. How green are you? How are you? I also want to say that the beginning of this presentation, may it go out to every realtor in this community that sees the numbers and exactly what our residential rates are in this community, so they can share that truth as opposed to perpetuating a truth from maybe 2005. To see that we've managed to make parity, invest in our city, supply to our general fund, employ people, be greener, build a solar farm, contract out more solar energy than anybody else. And I say this with the love and support from my fellow commissioners up here. We've had to make some hard decisions over the course of the years, but I'm so proud of our electric utility and what we're doing, and leading the country, if not, and leading the state, if not the country, in reference to how quickly we get there. It's important, and people are finally taking note of it. And we know a lot of people have earlier, but everyone's finally getting up to speed, and to see that we've made such great leaps and bounds so quickly is really something to be commended. So thank you, Ed, for always opening our eyes, ears, and everything else to opportunities to become better, to serve our customers better, to be better and competitive in rates, and most importantly, to be greener to help our environment. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to thank Jacob and FMPA as a whole. It's just fantastic that the level of support that we get from FMPA, the subject matter expertise, the rapid response that we get on issues, jumping in to help project manage for us. and provide us expertise that we don't have on staff. It's just outstanding what Jacob has done with that organization. And they're a can do, will do, how do we help you organization. And a lot of what we've achieved here is made so much easier because of the help that we get from FMPA.
And we're grateful to you, Jacob, and to FMP. We're so grateful. And I look forward to meeting you after this pandemic face to face. I owe you a coffee.
Well, and I just want to say, you made 2 points, Mayor and Ed, that I wanted to emphasize. The local control, the Lake Worth Beach could chart its own path because it's a local controlled utility. You could be on this path if you were part of a huge statewide entity that you had to be like everyone else. You couldn't be in the environmental path you're on. You know, you would be just the average of whatever's going on that point. So that has been great for you. The other is your solar decisions. You know, everyone wanted to be greener, but making the decision to move early was a high cost decision. You waited until later, till the cost met your parameters, and then you stepped in. That's the great decision. And so now you're in a position to be both green and yet still be competitive. A lot of people jumped in early for reasons, you know, political reasons, whatever. They didn't care about cost. You, on the other hand, manage both sides. So it's a compliment to the entire community and you, the commission, for making those decisions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I just really am impressed with all the progress you've made, Ed, since you've been here. It's fantastic. I love to hear the competitive word in Lake Worth in terms of electric and all the other things that we're competitive with. Lake Worth Beach is competitive. I do have a concern and wondering about our commercial rates and when we're going to really be competitive in that market. And I have a question about whether we're considering extending the payment plan, how that's working out. I know we've been compassionate, but we're still going to be suffering through the consequences of a pandemic. And I'm thinking that a year's payback is maybe needs to be extended in order to lighten the payback period, because not everybody is able to meet their requirements for payment. And it's not, a lot of times isn't because they don't want to. And maybe we should consider extending it beyond a year. But great progress, great report, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Maybe you could bring that back at our next regular commission meeting and our joint Electric Utilities Commission meeting, okay?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ed and Jacob, for a wonderful presentation. I wanted to piggyback on a comment that the mayor made about, you know, maybe we should take this information out to the realtors and you know, kind of let them know that, you know, the narrative has changed dramatically and we really need them to get on board with this. I'd like to take that that suggestion and turn it into some sort of a directive, if you will, to staff, that a presentation be created and an appointment be set up with the Realtors Association, present to their board of directors. And let's see where that takes us in terms of driving the message. I think that would be a very good first step. If we can make an impression with the board of directors and they in turn can turn around and feed that to their thousands of realtors throughout Palm Beach County, I think that would be a huge advantage for us going forward. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Come back and visit us soon.
Okay, will do.
All righty, we're going to move on. Remember, when we move the agenda around, the next item is actually new business A, which we've moved to this point. So I guess we'll have new business at this point, Madam Clerk, and then we'll later have new business too.
Absolutely. We're going to just have this one item in new business, then we'll go through the rest of the agenda.
Okay, and this is a quasi judicial, so there's a script involved, so forgive me as I read. I want to make sure legally I read everything that I'm supposed to. This is an appeal by Thomas Baird on behalf of 1920 10th Avenue LLC of Planning and Zoning Board, case number 20-005-00003, which includes site plan and conditional use approvals to allow for the construction of a new vehicle fueling charging station, single destination retail, and a restaurant at 1900 10th Avenue North, Lake Worth Beach, for a project commonly known as 7-Eleven. Before we begin this quasi judicial hearing, I would like to recuse myself from participating in this case, and Attorney Pam Ryan is going to address the reasons for my recusal as I have discussed this issue with her. I have filed and will be filing the appropriate paperwork with the clerk. At this time, I will turn over the gavel to the Vice Mayor to proceed with this hearing. Pam, are you here?
Pam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. As you're turning over the gavel, let me state for the record that the mayor and I spoke after the agenda for this meeting went out. The mayor is a tenant of the appellant in this case, the manager or owner of 1920 10th Avenue LLC. And we've decided that in an abundance of caution that we don't want there to be an appearance of impropriety. And therefore I have advised the mayor that it would be in her best interest to recuse herself from participating in the discussion of this matter and to abstain from voting. As she stated, she will fill out the appropriate paperwork with the city clerk and have that turned in. But for this case, only for this case, we're going to ask the mayor to recuse herself.
And I'll step out at this point. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. And this is my first one, so I will read also, but please chime in if I step out of bounds. This is a quasi judicial hearing to hear an appeal pursuant to section 23.2-17 of the city's code of ordinance. As we have stated in other cases, because this is an appeal, no new evidence will be taken, but the appellant and the applicant will each be given 10 minutes to make a presentation. And I would assume our city clerk will be timing that.
Yes, sir.
Thereafter, we will allow public comment and then the commission will ask questions. Do the commissioners have any ex parte communication, personal investigations, or campaign contributions to disclose? Vice Mayor Pro Tem Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I had two short telephone conversations with Mr. Gill prior to the initial Planning and Zoning Board meeting and approval of this project. And at that time, I advised Mr. Gill that really couldn't get into a conversation with him over the matter. I also have had conversations with Dan Hyatt, and I've also advised him in the same manner that I can't really have a conversation with him about this. Additionally, Mr. Hyatt over the years has been a contributor to my campaigns. That's all I have to disclose.
Commissioner Robinson.
Yes, I met yesterday with property owner Dan Hyatt, and I visited the site and listened to his concerns.
And I too have heard from both people mentioned and have heard their concerns. Okay. At this time, please promote all special participants to panelists and swearing in. I would assume staff has done that. All those giving presentation, answering questions from the commission, or speaking under public comment, please prepare to raise your right hand and be sworn in. Who will be doing it?
If we can give them just a few more moments, there's quite a few panelists. So if you can just give Keith just a couple more seconds.
We'll take a moment. Let me know when we're ready.
Yes. And Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, don't all the panelists need to turn on their video as well as their audio to be sworn in?
Yes, I believe that the city clerk likes to see everyone and hear everyone.
And then when we're ready, the city clerk will swear them in.
Good evening. Is everybody on that you know are coming? Aaron, does it look like everybody's ready?
It appears that Mr. Schmidt does not have his camera on. If he could do that, he could turn on his camera as well as his audio.
Good. Okay. If you would raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that in this proceeding you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
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 And
Mr. Smith was muted. He needs to have that turned on.
Mr. Schmidt, you're muted. If you would just say yes. At the bottom of your Zoom meeting, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Should get a prompt from me. I'm asking them to unmute. Just give it.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt, we'll take care of it. You're unmuted now.
Okay, thank you.
Hear us?
Yep. And was that yes, that you will tell the truth? Okay. As you make your comments tonight, please state your name and address for the record. And if you represent a party, please state who you represent.
Madam Clerk, I just wanted to also mention that in Mr. Schmidt's window is Mr. Hyatt as well.
Okay, thank you.
We will begin with city staff presentation. A reminder that it can be no longer than 10 minutes. Who's representing city staff?
Good evening, Vice Mayor. I'm going to be representing city staff. I just wanted to take a moment and share my presentation. Are you all able to see my presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. As you have stated, the item before the commission this evening is an appeal of a planning and zoning board case. The appellant attorney is Thomas Baird on behalf of 1920 10th Avenue South, and they are appealing the final order of the Planning and Zoning Board to allow a 7-Eleven at 1900 10th Avenue North. The subject project was approved on July 15th, 2020 by the Planning and Zoning Board with conditions of approval. It included a major site plan, vehicle fueling charging station, single destination retail and restaurant conditional uses, as well as a variance. However, the variance determination is being appealed separately at the 15th Judicial Circuit, which is not a part of the case this evening. The site location of this particular property is on the northwest corner of 10th Avenue North and Barnett Drive. You can see on the left is the location map with the aerial, and then on the right is the zoning map that indicates the zoning district is mixed use west. Just to summarize the prior action on this case, on March 3rd, we received the application from Ann Christine Carey of Keith, which is they are land development consultants on behalf of the property owner for the application to construct the 7-Eleven. On July 15th, the case was heard before the Planning and Zoning Board, as I previously stated. It was approved in a vote 4-0 with staff recommended conditions, as well as an additional condition that the Planning and Zoning Board added at the hearing, which was a condition that the applicant coordinate with the Palm Beach County School District and provide additional signage regarding for school crossings. On August 9th, the city received a notice of appeal from Mr. Baird on behalf of 1920 10th Avenue North. I would like to walk you through the conditions of approval this evening, just very briefly. The first set of conditions of approval that you're looking at is regarding the electric utility conditions of approval. And these are our general slate of typical conditions of approval that electric utilities would make on a new project for new construction.
Excuse me, Aaron. Can you speak up a little bit, because we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you? And can you slow down just a little bit?
I'm so sorry. Usually I'm so loud. I don't have that problem, so I'm not used to that.
It might be on our end, but we're going to try to fix it on our end.
All right, let me slow it down.
Thank
So,
you.
and just to go back through, the application was approved on July 15th at the Planning and Zoning Board with a vote of 4-2 with conditions of approval. And then just to refresh, we received the notice of appeal on August 9th. I'm going to walk you through the conditions of approval now. The first set is from electric utilities. These are very standard conditions of approval for new construction. The second set I will walk through one by one. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, would you mind muting yourself just real quick? Thank you. Condition number 1 in the planning conditions of approval is that there'll be a landscape screen for the air vac mechanical equipment along 10th Avenue North. The proposed signage will be reviewed through a minor site plan amendment prior to the building permit process. Condition 3 is that there will be no outdoor display of any kind. Condition 4 is a series of conditions that are required to be completed prior to the issuance of a building permit for the project. This include modifications to the building design. So there was a requirement to expand the fenestration, which are the windows, towards the ground across the entire building on both sides of the entrance door. I'll show you where that's located on the site plan. It's also to paint the retail building a color other than beige. The proposed paint colors and materials were very beige, and so that was a staff condition of approval for consistency with our major thoroughfare design guidelines. The condition C, prior to the issuance of a building permit, was that the applicant shall submit a traffic performance standards letter from Palm Beach County. This is the Palm Beach County concurrency letter. So before we'd issue a building permit, we would need to receive the final concurrency approval from the county. And then condition D, prior to building permit, is that the applicant shall provide additional school area signage by working in conjunction with city staff, the school board in Palm Beach County as applicable, and any new signage would be required prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the project. Again, moving on to public works, these are very typical conditions of approval for new construction, often relating to refuse and typical conditions of approval for buttoning up the site after construction is complete. And then finally, utilities and water and sewer, our engineering. And again, very typical, the condition I want to draw your attention to, though, is the condition number 2, which states that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the following shall be completed. Ensure that the plan conforms and integrates with the Palm Beach County roadway widening and improvement project, and provide an acknowledgement from Palm Beach County that the project meshes with the proposed roadway widening. The second part of that condition is that the vehicular access from Barnett Drive shall be a right in and right out access to and from the site for customer and employee traffic, excluding fuel delivery, which can use the driveway for ingress only. Sorry, that was a mouthful. So the fuel trucks can only go in, they can't go out on Barnett. And the improvements limiting such movements shall be approved by the Lake Worth City engineer. This just basically means that the stuff that's going to keep people from making that left-hand turn, those improvements will need to be specifically reviewed by our city engineer. Just to show you where those conditions were applied, the fenestration condition will apply to the front of the main structure. The right in and right out will apply here. And then you can see also from the Palm Beach County traffic letter that this is the deceleration lane that was required to be provided. So that concludes staff's presentation. I'd like to reserve our minutes for concluding remarks if that's possible. Thank you.
Aaron, I'm sorry, I didn't get the last, something in reference to remarks.
Oh, I said if we have any time left, I'd like to reserve those minutes for concluding remarks if needed.
Okay.
You would have exactly 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Okay, the appellant, Mr. Baird, may now make its presentation. A reminder that can only be no longer than 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to begin with slide 5, the notice of hearing.
If Mr. Baird could just give us a quick moment, we're gonna just transition the slides.
Thank you.
I won't start his time until you do.
Thank you. Andrew, could you please share Mr. Baird's presentation?
Will do, starting on slide 5.
The notice of hearing.
Okay.
Next. Are you ready, Madam Clerk?
We are, thank you.
Okay, so before the board's hearing, Mr. Gill, on behalf of the appellant in this case, sought a continuance because the notice he received did not give him sufficient time to prepare for the hearing, nor did it give him time to retain counsel. Mr. Hyatt and Mr. Schmidt, who were also affected parties, also objected to the short notice. At the board's hearing, Mr. Gill stated that the notice he received was less than a week before the hearing, and he needed more time to prepare for it. The board never, next slide. The board never discussed his request for a hearing. They simply deferred to the applicant's attorney. This request for a continuance was too late, to the extent that in October of this year, this commission adopted an ordinance which actually allows an affected party one opportunity for an automatic continuance. Had that ordinance been in place, Mr. Gill and the other affected parties would have had the opportunity to prepare for this hearing. But under the law at the time, they did not. Next slide. This is based on the record. The record includes the order, the applicant's submittal documents and justifications, and necessarily the comprehensive plan and land development regulations. Next slide. The record evidence will show that Mr. Schmidt and Dan Hyatt testified they're owners of 2 buildings facing Aragon and Barnett Streets, and Mr. Hyatt also owns Marlin Industrial Park. Mr. Gill testified he has companies and owns buildings in this area, including the large office building that is adjacent to the site. These property owners have been in this neighborhood a long time and travel daily the streets that will be impacted by the 7-Eleven. They know this area well. Next slide. Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Gill also noted that Lake Worth Middle School is in this neighborhood. They testified that the existing traffic already creates congestion, making it difficult to pull out on Barnett. Mr. Schmidt noted that the addition of a 7-Eleven would have a heavy impact on existing traffic and increased congestion. Next slide. Mr. Hyatt's testimony was similar. He noted that as a developer of 9 impact buildings in the area, he knows there hasn't been concurrency for adequate capacity on the roadways in this area for 23 years. He testified that he and Mr. Schmidt also own Action Mobility and that the drivers in this area have difficulty getting to and from that facility. Mr. Hyatt also testified that anything west of I-95 is gridlocked most of the day. Next slide. Mr. Hyatt described the intersection at Barnett as impassable and totally overburdened. Schmidt, Hyatt, and Gill all testified the streets have more vehicles on them than the streets can handle. Schmidt and Hyatt testified that buses and vehicles dropping off and picking up students contribute to the problem and the congestion in this area, and that 7-Eleven will only add to it. Next slide. There's basically too much development being crammed onto this 1.24 acre site by 7-Eleven as proposed. It's a 4,730 square foot store, which is much larger than typical C stores. And Mr. Schmidt, as a commercial real estate broker, has noted that the typical store, in his experience, is 2,000 and 3,000 square feet, almost double the 7-Eleven proposal. Mr. Schmidt also testified that the new business model for 7-Eleven was a large facility similar to a Raceway or a Wawa. And next slide. Mr. Hyatt, who's a developer, also testified that this proposed 7-Eleven is merely a Wawa copy and that based on his knowledge of site development, this type of business model requires 3 acres of land. Again, it's only 1.24 acres. Next slide. So when we apply the law to the testimony and evidence produced by these knowledgeable business people, next slide, what we find is that the applicant argued the project is consistent with one policy in the land use element of the comprehensive plan. The policy describes the mixture of uses which the city's policy requires for a development in this area. The analysis is proffered by the applicant and adopted by the staff is incorrect. The three retail uses of convenience store, gas station, and fast food restaurant are not consistent with the city's policy 1116, 3 ones and a 6. Next slide. The future land use category of mixed use west is intended to provide for a mixture of residential, office, service, and commercial retail uses west of I-95. The intent of this policy is clearly to promote 2 or more distinct uses, such as residential and office commercial, retail uses, some combination thereof. In fact, the policy states that the preferred mix of uses in this land use category is 75% residential and 25% non-residential. 7-Eleven proposes, as you would expect, no residential. It's 100% non-residential. Next slide. And there's not even a mixture of the non-residential uses. Rather, the uses are all retail uses, convenience goods, gas sales, and fast food. There's a distinct difference between multiple use and mixed use. This 7-Eleven is multiple use. Next slide. In contrast, mixed use is a mix of distinctly different types of uses, such as residential, retail, office, and this concept of mixed use is not present in the 7-Eleven application. Next slide. The policy clearly states that what is required is a mixture of residential, office, service, and commercial uses. To accept the applicant's arguments renders their project inconsistent with the purpose and intent of this land use category. Next slide. The 7-Eleven is a heavy traffic generating use. According to the city's comprehensive plan, heavy traffic generating uses shall be carefully considered before permitting them along 10th Avenue North. Heavy traffic uses, land uses include vehicular uses and are typically located at major intersections. Next slide. Intersection of 10th Avenue North and Barnett is not a major intersection. Vehicle charging and fueling stations such as 7-Eleven are high-intensity vehicular uses under the city's code. Therefore, a careful consideration of the city's policy would reveal that this high-intensity vehicular use is adding to the congestion and is not desired in this location. Next slide. The applicant and staff also argued that their conclusion was that the proposed project was consistent with the comprehensive plan and the LDRs. Not so. The district is intended to offer, the zoning district is intended, again, to follow the land use and offer a broad range of uses. Next slide. The proposed project with a convenience store, gas station, fast food restaurant is clearly intended to be a regional highway use because of its easy access to and from I-95 and is not consistent with the policy that the city has adopted in its zoning district. It does not comply with the zoning code's requirement to establish a broad range of office and other commercial uses and medium density multifamily residential development. Next slide. Conditional uses are only allowed subject to meeting specific criteria to ensure they will not create excessive problems for through traffic or have negative impact on nearby residential and commercial areas. As demonstrated from the testimony of the neighboring property owners, this project will create traffic congestion, adversely impacting long-established businesses and Lake Worth Middle School. Next slide. The intent of the mixed-use land use category is that it will be followed by a land development regulation, in this case, the one I just referenced, and that in order to be a conditional use and meet the criteria, the use cannot create excessive problems for through traffic, cannot have a negative impact on nearby residential areas, and cannot have a negative impact on the commercial viability of its neighbors. Next slide.
That's the end of your time. That's the 10-minute buzzer.
I just have 2 more slides to go. The combination of
I'm
both.
sorry, but that's the end. We're going to move on to the next.
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes.
is this presentation available to us in hard copy tonight?
The question from Vice Mayor Pro Temp, is this available to the commission, Madam Clerk?
The PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint?
I have not been given a copy of this presentation. However, somebody may, Aaron may have it, and they could certainly send it to you if that's your desire. I can, if they send it to me, I may be able to print it out for you.
Mr. Vice Mayor Pro Tem, I specifically requested that a hard copy be distributed to you all tonight.
Okay, hold on one second. Madam Attorney, I'm supposed to follow a very tight script, but I have another commissioner that has a question. Is that allowed at this time?
Well, a few things. Number one, I don't have, Mr. Baird, I may have missed it, but I don't see an email. I don't have the email. I don't have the request that you wanted it to be printed out. Number two, I think we should just proceed. There were some things that were discussed in that PowerPoint that were not a part of the record below. Certainly a discussion of that magnitude about the comprehensive plan and all of the policies were not made below, and we need to clarify that. So I don't want you to necessarily rely on that document too closely, because it really, I was there, and it really goes into some things that the affected party's representatives did not produce.
So we're going to talk about that under public comment or commission comment, correct?
Correct. So I guess what I'm saying is I would prefer that you not have a copy of it right now, because it really isn't evidence. It was his PowerPoint presentation that we normally don't even, we just have them make their presentation when they come to City Hall in person, and we move on. So I want to say no for right now. If you need it after everybody's done, if you feel like you still want to have it, let's continue, and then it can give the city clerk time, if she can, to make copies if you feel like you really need to have it.
Mr. Vice Mayor Pro Tem, just to be clear for the record, because I've been trying to jump in, I was about to object to most of that presentation. In fact, it's inappropriate. It was not in the record below. Other than the discussions about the existing traffic, that's all that was said, and that's what really is all that this record was. There was no discussion of those comprehensive plan provisions. It's not really relevant, as I'll explain, but I do, just for the record, object to all of that, and I do ask that it not be considered and then be stricken from the record. I understand it's been heard. I understand you may have that, but that's our position relative to the majority of that presentation that was provided.
Well, Madam Attorney, for the record, who is speaking?
This is Brian Seymour. I apologize.
He is the attorney for the applicant 7-Eleven.
Okay, and he's the next person to speak. So at this point, we need to stop speaking.
Yes.
And we need to go back to script and move on. Hold on one moment. The applicant, through Mr. Seymour, may now make its presentation. A reminder that can only be no longer than 10 minutes.
Thank you. And I have a short PowerPoint as well.
Is it? Do we have it?
Mr. Seymour, please address your name.
Oh,
for the record.
this is Brian Seymour. I have been sworn in. I'm the attorney for the applicant. My address is 777 South Flagler Drive, Suite 500 East, West Palm Beach, 33401.
Thank you.
And would you like staff to share the presentation on your behalf, or would your staff like to share the presentation?
No, I would appreciate it if you would do that. I want to keep everything consistent.
Certainly.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
I didn't hear the last comment.
I'm going to stop the timer until the presentation gets up like we did for Mr. Baird.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I did not hear the last two comments.
The last two comments were just about pulling up the presentation that I have.
I'll have it explained.
All right. Again, for the record, this is Brian Seymour on behalf of the applicant 7-Eleven. With us tonight, we do have some of the folks who testified. In fact, the three folks who testified, the experts at the planning board hearing. Josh Long, AICP. Josh is a planner with my firm. He is not an attorney. He is a professional and certified planner with over 20 years of experience. Lisa Bernstein, who is a traffic engineer with professional engineering designation of over 21 years. 36 years in traffic engineering though, and Brandon Wolf, who is employed by 7-Eleven and is their representative. Next slide, please. The next slide. So as Aaron pointed out, this is the approval that you have before you on appeal. And it ultimately provides for both the retail restaurant and separately the use, which is much more like a service use if you're going to consider that, of the fuel pumps and the service positions of the self-service fuel. Next slide, please. You know where this is. This is at 10th and Barnett. It is a mixed-use west zoning, and it was formerly a vehicle rental lot for Wayne Acres Ford. Next slide, please. So as Mr. Baird noticed, there's really two issues. One had to do with the timing of the notice, which though they continue to use the word short, the record shows that it in fact was longer than required by your code. And the second is competent substantial evidence, which is there enough to support the decision of the planning board? Next slide, please. So procedural due process is really functionally about should they have continued the hearing? As Mr. Baird noted, there was no right to the continuance. There is now and there was not then. And the question though is, did they have enough time? Well, that's really not quite the question. The question is, was it legal? And it was more than legal. And in fact, they did know. I believe that there was some discussion earlier from one of the commissioners, might have been Mr. Maxwell, that he was contacted prior to the Planning and Zoning Board hearing. And during the hearing at the Planning and Zoning Board, all of the affected parties noted that notice was complied with. And in fact, Mr. Gill specifically referenced the signs posted on site. So it wasn't even just mail that they got. It was about the fact that they specifically knew and didn't take any action. So you have mailings that were done as Mr. Waters testified at that hearing below, that it was actually sent out about a day early. It was posted, they knew about it, and then Mr. Gill waited. And I understand Mr. Baird may not have thought he had enough time, but that is not a reason to continue when all proper notice was met and Mr. Gill sat on his hands and waited to hire a lawyer until the last minute. So that is not what grants you a continuance. By allowing people to wait until the last minute to object and claim that now there's just not enough time to prepare simply encourages that behavior and makes the process that much more difficult in the city of Lake Worth Beach. If there had been something wrong with the notice, if everybody didn't agree that it was proper, then maybe we would be having a discussion that's different, but that is not what happened. And of course, Mr. Gill was there. He was at the hearing. He testified twice. He was given the opportunity to ask questions. And Mr. Baird, who did not show up, nor did anyone from his firm, certainly could have been there to do that as well. The letter Mr. Baird sent at the time didn't say he wasn't available, just that he didn't have time to prepare. But he didn't show up, nor did anyone else from his firm. Next slide, please. Talking about competent substantial evidence is important, and you have your attorney there, and you can ask her legal questions. And I don't think that you're going to care much whether Mr. Baird nor I have going to give you case law. But at the end of the day, what this is about, is there evidence to support the decision? Not whether there's counter evidence, not whether you like or don't like somebody like Mr. Schmidt or Mr. Hyatt, but is there evidence to support what's happened? And that's the question that needs to be asked. And the answer is, of course, there is. There's more than ample evidence. And what they really are talking about is traffic. And that's what you heard primarily about now. And there was evidence from your own staff. There was evidence from Ms. Bernstein, a licensed professional traffic engineer. In addition, there was a requirement that has since been met, but there was a requirement that it be approved by Palm Beach County as well to meet the appropriate levels of service. So there's several traffic improvements that are associated with this project that are ignored every time traffic is discussed. This is not about what traffic is like. And of course, we all know that gas stations tend to draw from pass-by traffic. So it isn't just new trips, but that there is significant improvements also associated with this project, some of which Aaron mentioned, but there's pedestrian connection, painted island, there's new signage, new entrance on 10th Avenue so that trips do not have to go on 10th Avenue. You saw the condition about the schools. There's a coordination with Palm Beach County Traffic Division, extending turn lanes and creating a new right turn lane into the site, eliminating a problematic left turn and a right turn out of the site onto Barnett. So the traffic on Barnett actually could decrease as a result of this. It is not exacerbated. Again, the discussion of what it's like now is not important to what it's going to be like later. And the only evidence supports the decision of the planning board. Ultimately, this will help the traffic pattern, and certainly much more than a use by right that would allow for development to utilize the existing access, no conditions, no conditional use, a use by right. It's also important to note that this project is 4% of the maximum development allowance for the site. That's also in the record below, 4%. That's not squeezing onto the site. It's only 4% of the maximum uses, of the maximum development potential. So even if you were to consider the fear that the neighboring businesses have, that doesn't overcome the fact that the improvements that are provided, something that your planning and zoning board appropriately considered in their approval, but that the objectors completely ignore, provide you a much better traffic circulation and a much better traffic pattern. The facts, not the fear and speculation, show that there is significant evidence from professionals when you consider the entirety of the project that there will not be an adverse traffic impact. Next slide. Just so you can see some of this, you can, I think you need to click one more. One more. That shows the right turn lane that's being built on the 7-Eleven property. One more. This shows you're going to have that no left turn signage. You're going to have that island, and you're going to end up with a right in, right out only on Barnett instead of all traffic coming in on Barnett as you would have now. Next. So ultimately, you had significant review of the facts. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to rush through this. They were presented to the Planning and Zoning Board. Everybody knew about it. They knew in advance. They waited to hire a lawyer, and that's not enough to say that this wasn't done appropriately, that a notice was short, or that there wasn't competent substantial evidence, because the evidence supports the decision. And that's the question for you tonight. And the decision therefore should be upheld. I'm here, our witnesses who testified at that hearing are here. We're happy to answer any questions you have to elucidate anything that you've heard or that is in the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment cards, or are there any members of the public who wish to make a public comment at this time? Madam Clerk, you're muted. You're still muted, Madam Clerk.
So sorry. You'd think it was the first time I did this. I have no comment cards. I'm sorry. Keith, do you?
No.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for the staff, applicants, appellant? Please be reminded that you cannot ask questions which go outside of the record below. You may seek clarification on issues, but should not ask for new information. Madam Attorney, I just wanted to go back real quick to try to answer something for Vice Mayor Pro Tem Maxwell. So at least one of the commissioners on the dais wanted a copy of the information that was presented. Now, you alluded that some of that information may or may not be factual. So I'm concerned that that becomes informational for our commissioners that may or may not be factual. Did you want to jump in on that?
Well, I want to say this, and Mr. Baird can speak to this if he wants. A lot of this information concerning specific policies and the interpretation of those policies that are in this PowerPoint were never raised below, never discussed below by, let me be careful. The city and the applicant put on their information, and in that information, they discussed the comprehensive plan. At no point did the appellant now, who was the affected party then, raise an issue concerning these policies and how they affected the site plan project. So to the extent that he is making argument now, he's making an argument on information that was not presented below. So it's new, it's fresh for you to review now, but the Planning and Zoning Board did not have an opportunity to review the same information. And it really is their job. That's their job. This is an appeal. So on appeal, you're not allowed to come up with new thoughts and ideas and interpretations, because it's not fair to the board below that had to consider it the first time. So you all have information that they were not privy to, and that's not an appeal.
Well, Mr. Vice Mayor, if I can address that.
Hold on. Are we? I'm gonna go to commission first. Hold on. Are we muting people just to make sure nobody's jumping in? Commissioner Maxwell, go
I
ahead.
need to address the city attorney's comments. If your assertion is that the presentation given by the appellant was chock full of new information, why didn't you object as the presentation went on? I'm kind of curious about that.
I wanted him to make his presentation, and there would have been a lot of back and forth. Mr. Barrett is not going to just let me cut off his presentation. So the information is here for you to review. He can make his argument. We're making an appellate record. It's not my place necessarily to stop people from making their presentations. So he was allowed to make it. You heard it. Mr. Seymour has asked you not to consider it. I think that's appropriate. It's not the entire presentation that should be stricken, but you should be careful when you review the sections that deal with the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Maxwell?
Okay, that being said, then what can be said for Mr. Seymour's presentation? Was it factual in every respect?
Yes, sir. That's why I specifically referenced what was record below.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
We're talking to our attorney.
Sir,
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Right. I also reviewed his presentation as well, and I didn't see anything in his presentation that was not discussed below. And his presentation.
In the written form or the spoken form?
I would say mostly the written form, because we did not have a transcript of what was said. So most of it is in, I'm looking at it again right now, a written form. The only thing that he said that's not here was the discussion about Mr. Baird not participating in the quasi-judicial hearing.
Was that kind of significant?
Well, what was important is that his letter was presented to the board. The board did have the letter with him, of Mr. Baird asking for a continuance, and they considered that letter. And they rejected it, and they decided to move forward.
Okay, Pam, can you highlight some of the things in his, I think what Commissioner Maxwell is trying to identify are some of the things that were not brought up in that meeting. Can you highlight some of those things that we should not be considering or looking at?
For Mr. Seymour?
No.
Whose presentation?
I'm sorry?
Vice Mayor, am I going to have an opportunity to address that?
Hold on one moment.
I disagree with the opinion of your city attorney.
Okay, hold on one moment. Madam Attorney?
What is your question?
The question was, I think Commissioner Maxwell was looking for some of the things that weren't necessarily brought up, things that we should not be considering in the first presentation.
Okay.
Am I going to have an opportunity to address that?
Hold on.
On page 8 of the presentation entitled application of the law, do we want to put it back up to testimony and
We don't have
evidence?
the presentation.
Okay.
We'll put up the presentation, Madam Attorney, if you can just give us a second. Andrew, could you please fill up the presentation?
I can't hear that. I couldn't hear that.
And we need everyone to talk a little louder because we're having a hearing problem.
I can hear.
We're gonna pull up, staff is gonna pull up the presentation, the appellate's presentation.
Okay, and I also want the presentation from the other attorney.
Afterwards. Can't pull them up both at the same time.
May I make a comment?
Commissioner Maxwell?
Yep. It's been my experience that, when we have meetings or quasi-judicial meetings in the past, presentations are provided to us in the written form, in the hard copy form. Okay, and I'm a little bit challenged here this evening to try to recall all the information, particularly in the first presentation. And you're questioning, Madam City Attorney, the veracity, if you will, of some of the comments that were made. So, I speak only for myself when I say, what am I to work with here? Am I to take the 7-Eleven attorney's position that what he said was accurate and what the appellant said was inaccurate?
Let me be clear. I didn't say that what the appellant said was inaccurate. I said that it was not presented or considered by the Planning and Zoning Board. His argument on page on application of the law consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, I'm not going to even deal with that one. Go to the one that says there is not even a mixture of the non-residential uses policy. Rather, the uses that are proposed are all retail uses. There is a distinct difference between multiple use and mixed use. They didn't go through an analysis of the comprehensive plan at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm saying that these issues that are being raised here could be argued all night. They can both have their experts testifying about it, but that's not what an appeal is for. It's easy to go back and see all the things that you didn't do correctly the first time and have a second bite of the apple, but that's not what this appeal is for.
Okay, so let's try this. Madam Clerk, can you get me 3 copies of both of the presentations brought to the dais?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Robinson, did you have questions at this time?
Well, I am interested in the county response, but that, I don't know legally if we can talk about county input to this project or not, because it's clearly an increase in traffic, but
Madam Attorney or Aaron, I sit on the TPA as the alternate, and I know that there is in the 5-year plan work to be done on 10th Avenue. Can you share that with the dais?
Certainly. Vice Mayor.
Can you state your name for the record because we can't see you at the moment?
This is Erin Sita for the record with Community Sustainability. And, you know, I'll also lean on William Waters if he's been in additional meetings as well. But that, but 10th Avenue North is set to be widened. There is a proposed 120-foot right-of-way. And we are anticipating 6 lanes on that roadway. In addition, the DOT is proposing a interchange improvements at 10th Avenue North and 95.
And was this information brought up at the planning and zoning?
Yes, it's in the conditions of approval. The widening of the road, the applicant is required to coordinate their deceleration lane and make sure that Palm Beach County is comfortable with their configuration, keeping in mind the road widening. We also have Brian Shields on the line, and he can speak to more of the specifics as the reviewing engineer if you would like to.
Commissioner Robinson?
Well, just and light timing at Barnett and 10th. Was that a consideration at the same time from the county or DOT?
At any time was light timing brought up from the county?
Not at the hearing, and it was not in the letter. We asked them because we were aware of the road widening. We asked them to coordinate on the road widening.
Commissioner Maxwell?
To stay on the same line of questioning, but I don't have any questions about that right now.
Okay. Commissioner Robinson?
I have one other question. Was the court consequences, can you help me understand the pros or possibilities of the court outcome relating to our decision tonight?
Madam Attorney?
Well, this is my opinion. As you already know, the variance issue was a separate issue that was considered. It was considered by the Planning and Zoning Board, but under our code at the time, a variance goes directly to the circuit court. And so the appellant in this appeal has already appealed the decision about the variance. So that's on appeal right now. And we're waiting. The appellant has already filed its brief. The court has granted the applicant an opportunity to intervene in the response of the case, and we have not filed our responses yet. So that's going on separately. So if you decide to grant this appeal, meaning overturning the result of the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board, most likely 7-Eleven will appeal. If you decide to not overturn the Planning and Zoning Board's decision, then the appellant will likely continue with the variance appeal and appeal this decision to the circuit court as well. So that's the outcome. Either way, I have a feeling this case will be appealed, and that's why it's important for everyone to be able to make their record here, even though the court will be looking at primarily the Planning and Zoning Board's decision when it makes its decision, because that was really the decision. Well,
I didn't get a real, I'm not clear on whether who's successful and what will it come back to us if one is successful or not.
Right. If you overturn the decision of if you approve or agree with the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board, and the appellant that's here, 1920 10th Avenue LLC, and they appeal the decision. And if the court agrees with them, they will send the case back down to the Planning and Zoning Board to review.
Okay. That's all right.
Is that an option?
Might as well.
For us to remand this back to the Planning and Zoning Board, to have it reheard?
Depending on the court.
You mean as a commission?
Yeah.
If you articulate your reasons why you want to send it back, of course it's a possibility. There's nothing that says that you can't, in the old code or in the new code, that says you can't remand it for more information to be discussed, fleshed out a little bit more, if you will, if that is what the pleasure of the commission is.
When you guys are finished up questions.
Okay, you go ahead. You're up.
You're both finished?
We're finished at the moment.
I have a question for the applicant representative.
Yes, sir.
Do you, your client actually owns the property?
No, the property is owned by another LLC that the owners are watching this. I know that. And we have a long-term lease on the property that's currently in place.
Okay, according to our minutes here of the planning and zoning meeting, you represented that your client owned the property.
I don't believe that I did.
Well, that's
our client has a property interest in the property. A lease is an interest in real property.
Let me read the minutes to you. Brian Seymour, Gunster Law Firm, representing 7-Eleven. The applicant is the property owner. 7-Eleven is the tenant.
So I believe that the application was in both names.
What does that mean?
Well, so the application was in both the name of 7-Eleven and in the name of the LLC that owns it, as I recall. I don't have it open in front of me, but my client is the property interest, has the property interest in the lease. That's who I represent. The owner didn't have individual representation there.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is you're representing that your client actually owns the property and they don't.
No, sir, that was not my intent. And I can only tell you that the owner allows the lessee to proceed and manage their own application. But there are cases where the applicant is both because of the nature of the way the codes are, but my client is 7-Eleven. So the applicant, the owner can be both people, but I still only have one client as far as the presentation goes.
Okay, so break it down for the layperson. So it's like one of those deals where your client has an option to buy that land?
No, because no, they actually have the interest in the land. They have a signed lease, and all these approvals allow them then to move forward. It's not contingent in any way.
Okay, so they're not the owners, they're just a tenant.
Correct, they're a tenant.
Carry
on. I'm concerned, and I'll be perfectly frank about this concern. One of the issues raised by the appellant was time of service. And Mr. Seymour, you so eloquently said they had plenty of time under state law or local code. Can somebody tell me when the letter was postmarked and sent out to the affected parties?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I think Mr. Waters testified during the hearing about it. I can try to pull up the transcript if you
have that information.
The proof of mailing was on July 2nd.
It was postmarked July 2nd, put in the mail on July 2nd?
Yes, that's what the certificate of mailing actually means, is that that's William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. Certificate of mailing acknowledges at what date the notices were provided to the Postal Service for delivery, which was July 2nd.
And when were the signs posted?
Hold on. Those were also posted on the 2nd of July.
And what proof do you have of that?
We have a photograph and an email that was attached to an email we received from the applicant. And the proof of mailing is a stamp from the post office. It's a form, and this post office stamps for all the addresses that they were sent.
So letters were taken to the post office and you handed them to the post office and they stamped it and proceeded to mail it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's that.
Okay. And how many days are required for notice for the affected parties?
10.
10,
At business days or calendar days?
calendar.
Okay. July 2nd, that was 2 days before July 4th.
Yes.
Holiday weekend? Holiday weekend?
Yes,
Yes.
4th of July was on Sunday.
Or either the 3rd or the 6th, a legal holiday?
The 3rd.
You said the 3rd, carry on.
Oh, the 3rd was a legal holiday?
Friday, July 3rd was a legal holiday.
So could it be concluded that the mail probably didn't move because of the holiday?
No, no, sir. In fact, the record reflected that mail was delivered on July 3rd. That there was mail delivery on July 3rd. I would also point out that that still is beyond what was required. The 10 days could have allowed the mailing July 5th. So even if it was delivered July 3rd, which the post office was delivering, it would have met it. So
I understand.
It was early, and there was mail delivery on July 3rd, even though it was a holiday.
Well, I find that a little problematic, even though it might meet the technicality of the law. I don't think it meets the spirit of the law. And I'm not a lawyer, but that's just my humble opinion.
Okay, is there more questions?
And there's another question. Mr. Seymour, and look, for the record, I believe that property owners have property rights. Okay? And we need to do whatever we can to preserve their property rights. And in this particular circumstance, it's a little bit unique because it was a holiday weekend when supposedly you mailed notice. And then on top of that, what I'm hearing you say, sir, and you said that the appellant's party, or Mr. Gill or somebody sat on their hands. How do you know that to be a fact?
Because he specifically said during the hearing that he saw the signage that was posted as well. He said that the notice was proper. He didn't say he got the notice at the last minute. He just hired the lawyer at the last minute. What the record reflects at the planning board. And I fully suspect that if we go back to the planning board, they'll change their story, to be completely honest with you. But what the record reflects is that he specifically said he saw the signs posted as well. Well, those signs were posted on the 9 days prior to the hearing, and there was no evidence other than Mr. Baird being hired at the last minute. But he did say he got the notice. The mail was delivered the 3rd, the mail was delivered on the 6th, the mail was delivered on the 7th. And so the idea is that you can't look at it, wait on it 2 days before a hearing, then go try to hire counsel and say, now I need a delay, because the rights belong to everybody. We also have rights. And so delaying this process just delays the rights that we all have in our properties as well. So it's a balancing act, and that's where the sitting on his hands comes from.
Well,
Mr. Vice Mayor, that's all speculative. Mr. Gill's here. He can speak for himself.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
Okay, but that was directed directly to Mr. Seymour.
It wasn't. I guess it was.
Yes, you did. You asked Mr. Seymour.
Okay, and I want to finish with this.
Okay.
2 things, Mr. Seymour. So
yes, sir.
Are you willing to retract your statement that the appellant sat on his hands because you don't know that for a fact?
No, sir. I believe that he did, because he testified that he had the proper notice and that he saw the signs. But the letter from Mr. Baird said that he was hired just 2 days before the hearing.
And I want to go back and ask you about the comment you made about the board. If we went back to the board, they might change the story. Why would you make a statement like that?
Because I watched Mr. Gill shake his head as I was quoting his testimony, virtually quote, I was paraphrasing his testimony.
So were you referring to the board or are you referring to the appellate?
Mr. Gill specifically. As I was telling you exactly what he said at the hearing, which we have in a transcript, he was shaking his head.
Okay. This is for the city attorney.
Madam Attorney?
Are you
I am
there?
here. I'm here, yes.
Okay. A comment was made that there will actually be less traffic on Barnett. Was that statement made during the hearing?
I don't know. I don't have the transcript in front of me. Aaron, do you by chance know? I can't.
No, I don't know if that statement specifically was made, but there was discussion at the hearing that the additional improvements would improve traffic flow on Burnett by the applicant, that I recall, and that are in the minutes. There was discussion at the hearing that the improvements on Barnett would improve the function of traffic on the site, and that the entrance to the site was moved back away from the 10th Avenue North intersection to allow better functionality of the site. Whether the exact statement that Mr. Seymour made, I don't know if that specifically was said, but the general discussion of an improvement of traffic functionality with the improvements, with the site improvements, with the turn lane, the limited turn lane, and then the access modified on the site to go further north on Barnett were both addressed verbally. And then those discussions and then that analysis, those improvements were identified in the site plan and the conditions of approval.
I just, I'm just concerned that the comment was made that there'd be less trips on Barnett Drive. And if it was made, how would you possibly know that? Because, I don't see how you create a new opportunity for folks to spend their money and think that somehow you're going to have less traffic. And the assertion that, well, the cars are there anyway, they're just going to turn off and get gas. What's to preclude 7-Eleven from putting large signs on 995 in both directions saying, hey, get off here and get your gas?
Mr. Seymour, you want to address that?
So I'm trying to find the transcript. So when I prepared my notes, I had it directly from transcript. To be frank, I can't find the transcript. My computer is a little difficult right now, so I'm not able to pull the transcript up. But if you wanted to disregard that, I can understand that. And if you wanted to go with better traffic flow as opposed to reduced, that's fine. Because I'm trying to pull it up and I'm having a computer problem. So I understand if you wanted to follow just with what your staff referenced specifically.
Well, I think it's
if I can find it, I'll let you know though in the meantime.
Sure. I think it's important though, if you want us to make a decision tonight, that we have all the facts before us before we make that decision. And the fact is you can't bring up the things that you need to bring up to clarify your answers to my questions.
Were there
I'm
more?
not.
Were there more questions, Mr. Maxwell?
None at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson?
I just a comment that we have property rights on both sides. So a property owner has the right to develop the property to the letter of the law. The consequences of communication are important, and maybe in the future we will be able to require better communication and information from a developer in a appropriate time lapse before decisions are made. I have a question about, since there's three of us, if is the majority of two going to satisfy?
Madam Attorney?
No, I think that your charter and your code requires that a majority, which equals three, and it says 3 members have to vote to approve a motion, to pass a motion. So in this case, there are only 3 of you, so all 3 of you would have to vote one way or the other.
Are we ready to make a decision then tonight?
I have more questions.
Okay. Commissioner Maxwell, you have additional questions?
Yeah, I do. This is for staff.
Go ahead.
I guess I'll start with William Waters. How did staff come up with this idea that somehow a high impact, a lot of cars is going to be appropriate for this site? I mean, where are we with the traffic study and, absolute assurance that it's not going to create more congestion?
Well, for the record, there was significant testimony from the traffic engineer of the applicant that the overall impact of the project would not reduce the level of service on 10th Avenue North. As was mentioned by Mr. Seymour, the site does have a development potential of 58 residential units and 220,000+ square feet of development under mixed use west, which developed to that extent would have far greater impact and far more trips than the proposal. The improvements that were proposed for 10th Avenue North are in line with the widening of 10th Avenue North, the improvements for pedestrian access, and the acknowledgement that they would work with Palm Beach County School Board. Staff came to the conclusion that this project would actually enhance and improve the traffic patterns and traffic congestion at this particular intersection. That in tandem with the proposed additional infrastructure improvements on 95 and 10th Avenue interchange, and then the impending widening of 10th Avenue to 6 lanes, which is, as Aaron mentioned, was 120, maybe 110 foot right of way. This project helps move that widening along because it does take into account properties that the county will want in order to facilitate that widening. So staff came to the conclusion that in terms of what could happen there under our code and approvals and what was happening, this was a good compromise project to move forward with. I don't think anybody would like to live at that particular intersection in a residential project. We do have other ones that are being proposed down the street.
Okay, may I?
Continue.
Yeah, you were coming a little bit muffled, but I'll try to ask questions based on what I think I heard, and I hope I do a good job. If I misrepresent what you said, please correct me. So did you say that the traffic analysis or whatever discussion was predicated on the traffic study conducted by the applicant?
Yes.
Has the county weighed in on this?
Yes, their traffic concurrency letter, Aaron mentioned earlier in her presentation, has been received by the city.
We have received the traffic concurrency letter from the county.
And let me state that letter was received before the hearing before the Planning and Zoning Board?
No, we had
approval.
It was a condition of approval. William is correct that it be received prior to the issuance of a building permit. So we did receive it, and there was emails from the county discussing the improvements that they were negotiating with the applicant.
So were they saying that the improvements they're making would be consistent with a proposed project in the future? Is that what they were saying?
Yes.
So what happens if that project in the future doesn't happen?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm confused.
Well, Mr. Maxwell, if you can hear me, there will be a much larger issue at hand because there are property owners that have been required to dedicate right-of-way for this improvement. There have been payments in lieu of improvements from other projects in the city. I would think the county would have a whole host of lawsuits from a whole number of people if that project does not move forward as planned.
Well, that's an assumption. let's talk about, did anybody talk about the attractive nuisance factor as far as the middle school kids are concerned?
They did.
And-
Well, they talked about the students. That was talked about at length.
And can you kind of, I mean, in my mind's eye, I know what middle school kids are going to do. They're going to take their lunch money and instead of, having lunch, maybe they're going to stop at 7-Eleven, which didn't exist prior to this potential project being built. And my concern is that you're going to have a safety issue. That's already a tough road for those children to navigate now when they walk from the middle school over 10th Avenue or over I-95 on 10th Avenue North. And the idea that they might be milling around at a 7-Eleven or a local restaurant after school with, additional cars coming and going, I don't know that sets a real good, safe environment. And you're telling me that was discussed, and how was it remedied or mitigated?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the Planning and Zoning Board asked the applicant to coordinate with the school district, and I don't know what we don't know what obviously the coordination that has happened or where they are with that, because that happened after but they had a deadline to coordinate with the school district and to provide additional signage and additional striping and additional safety provisions
as a condition of approval.
As a condition of approval, the coordination was to take place prior to building permit, and the improvements were required to be in place prior to certificate of occupancy.
And who will approve whatever is decided by the school board? On our
The
end?
school board,
On our end.
the city engineer.
So there's a lot of conditions here to get us to make this project go. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's not atypical that projects like this and many others have this variety of conditions of approval. This may have a few more than some, but most projects in the city, since I've been here 10 years, have had extensive list of conditions of approval that are due to be met at the 2 time periods that Ms. Sita mentioned, prior to the issuance of the building permit or prior to the issuance of a certificate of completion or occupancy.
Well, it just seems to me that this is, trying to put a square peg through a round hole. That's what it sounds like. Mr. Vice Mayor, are we ready to make a recommendation? Because I think I have some final comments.
Are you interested in any other?
Well, clearly we're a little restricted by numbers, so let's.
Okay, so according to my script, we've gone through questions, asked commissioners to discuss the appeal amongst themselves, which we have done some of that. Commissioner Maxwell.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, and that's next on my script. I will accept a motion. Commissioner Maxwell.
Where the heck is the proposed motion? Is that on the front of the page? Front of our backup? Oh, here it is.
Second page of the staff report gives you 2 options or motions, though the city attorney may provide you a third one based on the question that you asked earlier.
I'm sorry, what did he say?
I said that there are 2 potential motions in the staff report on page 2, but due to a question that you asked, the city attorney may offer you a third option for a motion.
Oh, we have a third option?
Well, based on your question, I would assume the third option would be, can it go back to the planning and zoning? Madam Attorney, can you address that, please?
Right. I mean, it's clearly up to the commission, but if you feel as though there was not enough of a discussion of these matters, then you can certainly send it back for further review by the Planning and Zoning Board. It would be helpful if in your motion you could say specifically what it is that you would like them to look at further. If that's one of the, it's one of the motions that you can make.
Thank you. Mr.
This is a tough one. Look, I have concerns, I think there's been some, I'm really concerned about, honestly, I'm concerned about the applicant representing himself as being the owner of the property when in fact they're not. I find that most uncomfortable. Sometimes when we go to these quasi judicial meetings, we always find out, well, not always, oftentimes we find things, little things that aren't factual. And to me, if that's what we can find, from our level with, this level of examination, it makes me wonder if there's other things here.
Well, Mr. Maxwell, I apologize, but I actually have the transcript of that I was able to find. And what it actually says is the applicant is the property owner here, 7-Eleven as the lessee is the ultimate operator, and we do represent 7-Eleven. So that's what the actual transcript says. So I don't know what the minutes got to, but that's in the verbatim transcript.
Can you read that again, please?
Yes, sir. The applicant is the property owner here, which is per your forms. 7-Eleven as the lessee is the ultimate operator, and we do represent 7-Eleven.
So you're saying the applicant, the landowner, has brought forth this issue. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, the technical applicant is the landowner per your forms, your application forms.
Madam City Attorney.
Madam Attorney?
I'm right here.
This sounds like a really dumb question, but we're talking about 7-Eleven here the whole time. From a legal standpoint, help me out here.
I don't really understand what the issue is.
The issue is we're having conversations of, well, I think I just answered my own question.
The application is in your packet. The
Okay.
application clearly states that it's both of them. I just looked at it myself.
Right.
The owner's consent in the universal development application that each of you has, it states that under number 4, 1900 10th Avenue LLC, owner certifies that it is the owner of the property located at the address and expressly consents to the use of the subject property as described in this application and to all conditions that may be agreed to as part of the approval of this application, which may be imposed by the decision-making board. This is a standard application that we send to everyone, and we allow tenants or sometimes people who are under contract with the owner to make application all the time.
Right. Okay. Well, I stand corrected, and thank you for the clarification. I guess my next question would be, in our backup material, is there an actual copy of the lease, the 15-year lease that was referenced?
I don't believe that we required the lease. I haven't seen a lease.
No, we've not. There is no copy of a lease in the city's possession as far as I'm aware.
I'm sorry?
No copy of the lease at this time.
Okay.
There's a copy of the warranty deed for the property that's attached.
Okay. What documentation that an actual lease exists?
What documentation that an actual lease exists?
Respectfully, Commissioner, we're not sharing our lease. I don't know how else to say that, but the lease between a property owner and a lessee is business. That's a trade secret. What terms are there? What's done? You have sworn testimony that lease exists. You have authorization by the property owner who has signed under oath to allow this to go forward with this. But we will, if it means killing the project, we cannot share the lease. That will ruin every 7-Eleven deal that ever goes forward. So I get that you may want to see things, but I have sworn under oath. Brandon Wolf, who is here and on, who is 7-Eleven's representative, he's under oath tonight as well. If you wanted to ask him specifically, but I'm telling you under oath, the lease exists. They have authorization by the forms that you require for your city. And I cannot give you more than that. In no city have we ever provided a full lease.
Thank you. Maxwell?
Okay. I guess I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Madam City Attorney, I'm going to make motion number 2. This would overturn the Planning and Zoning Board's decision. I find the evidence presented was not competent and substantial. I don't believe that, I believe there's some question marks as far as the conditions, whether they can be met or not. And therefore, I move to overturn or reverse the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board. Is that a sufficient, I can't see the city attorney.
Madam Attorney?
Yeah, those are your reasons. That's sufficient.
It is sufficient?
It's sufficient for your motion. I don't know if it's, you know.
Is it legally sufficient?
You've given your reasons. I'm sure they're going to make an argument one way or the other. I mean, you have to, you're saying that there is not, you have not seen enough evidence. So you think that there was not enough competent, substantial evidence before the Planning and Zoning Board. That's what you're saying. And because there wasn't enough evidence, you are overturning their decision.
So would you repeat what you just said, please?
Well, I didn't write down your reasons. I don't know if Aaron did. But I think what you're saying is that there was not enough evidence presented below that you've seen to address some of the issues that you've raised tonight. You have questions about ownership, you have questions about the kids, and the attractive nuisance. Those are issues that you feel should have been addressed, and they were not addressed. That's what I'm hearing. Is there more?
That's thank you very much. This is a difficult thing. Look, I'll stop now. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay. Motion dies for lack of second. Is there a new motion?
Well, clearly, if there was one motion to deny the planning and zoning, and I make a motion to approve planning and zoning, it's worthless anyhow. So,
is that your motion?
Well, can I have a legal opinion on that?
You should make your motion.
I will make a motion to approve or deny the appeal based on the evidence that we've.
Hold on one moment.
Give me the goddamn.
So your just to be clear, your motion is that you're finding that there was competent, substantial evidence to uphold the Planning and Zoning Board's decision.
The evidence, competent and substantial evidence presented to Planning and Zoning Board, yes. So I uphold their decision.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Unless you want to, I mean,
It's still
we're hamstrung here with numbers.
Motion dies for lack of second. Madam Attorney?
This has been a waste of time.
Right. So if there is no motion to overturn, then the Planning and Zoning Board's decision will stand because you don't have a motion.
Oh, no.
Hold on. We don't get to go back and forth. Hold on, Madam Attorney.
Right. It would be good to make a decision and to have a motion, but if nothing happens, then it stands. It would be better for the appeal of either side for you to well, I'm going to stick. I think that's true. There was a motion to overturn the decision, and well, it died for lack of a second. You need to vote. You guys haven't voted on anything. There needs to be a motion and a vote on something.
Pamela, may I interrupt? And
There's a
maybe,
third option.
I've seen this happen before at the city commission level when they could not get a second on a motion. Would it be appropriate for the vice chair to hand the gavel to the mayor, vice mayor pro tem in order to make a second on a motion?
I can make a second on one of the motions, but it's still not going to get us based on the, I can try, but,
Right, but there needs to be a motion and a second.
Well, there was the third option also, which is to remand it back to the planning and zoning board.
but
That's still a motion.
That was not a motion.
Right, there still needs to be a motion.
But it could be made.
Absolutely.
I actually disagree with that, but I'm not going to get into that's exactly what they're trying to get to, right? Is make us start all over again. So it's effectively the same as the reversal. I mean, honestly, I'd rather just go to court if that's what we're going to do. I mean, it's been, the fact of the matter is, we've been here, we've now made arguments twice. There was significant testimony. I don't think it can go back, and we would object to that.
And I would disagree with that. I think the due process rights of the
Can we
adjacent
mute everyone
property
because
owners.
everybody's talking out of turn and they're not listening to me? So at this point, we need to mute everyone but the city attorney, unless spoken to. Madam Attorney.
Yes,
there's a
sir.
question from Commissioner Maxwell.
There is.
You just raised your hand.
No, I was going to offer, I guess the only other option we would have would be to kick it back to the planning and zone, but Mr. Seymour seems to be very adamant, and he's making a lot of assertions and opinions about everybody's motives, including ours, which frankly, I'm not terribly happy about.
Okay, Commissioner Robinson, did you have a motion?
Can I second Commissioner Maxwell's motion?
I didn't hear, what is the motion, please?
Commissioner Robinson would like to second Commissioner Maxwell's motion that died for lack of second.
In order to have a vote.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
What's he doing?
Can he do that? Can we open that motion back up?
He needs to make a new motion.
Commissioner Maxwell, are you interested in making a motion?
I just made one.
Make another one.
You need to either reiterate your original motion or make a new one.
I just asked that we kick it back to the planning and zoning board.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
It dies.
Motion dies for lack of second. Do you have a new motion?
Okay, and Mr. Chair, because you are a small board, Robert's Rules of Order, I don't know what your rules say, but I know Robert's Rules of Order will allow you to make a motion if you would like to make a motion yourself. Let me check. I need to check your rules because I think your rules may not allow it.
It will allow it. I'll assume the gavel.
Okay. If that's something you're interested in.
I will pass the gavel. I will make a motion to deny the appeal. Is there a,
Second.
you got the gavel, Commissioner.
Okay, do we have enough for city attorney to move forward on this, to vote?
You have a motion to deny the appeal. There is a second, so you can vote on that motion, yes. And you need to say because of competent substantial evidence. I just would like you to add that, to take that.
Correct. I don't have it.
Give me the motion. It's up there. Number one.
Number one.
If you're upholding, or
I find that the evidence presented in the application materials testimony and the staff report was complete and substantial, and therefore move to uphold the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board approving major site plan vehicle fueling charging station, single destination retail and restaurant uses at 1900 10th Avenue North with conditions of approval as set forth in the development order.
Sir,
second.
that's not what your original motion was.
I'm sorry?
You just read the motion to uphold the P and Z.
Right.
Deny.
I I thought he said the motion was to deny the appeal, which is to uphold the planning and zoning board.
I beg your pardon. Okay, so your motion is to deny the appeal.
Correct.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
You're gonna finish?
Well, no,
No.
the motion fails.
It fails.
It fails. The motion fails. So I'll pass the gavel back to you.
Okay, I'll take the gavel back. Madam Attorney?
This is,
Well, Ms.
We have two legal minds now, so hopefully.
Yes,
we can get us out of this mess.
I'm interested in hearing what Christy has to say, because I'm to a point where I think we may have to continue this to another meeting where we have a fuller city commission sitting.
Yes, Chair Amoroso, if I may jump in, I was just thinking, we do have on our agenda our discussion about the appointment for District 2. And if, whenever that happens, that would give us 4 folks on the commission, and that would give you 1 more, because Ms. Ryan's correct in that under the charter, in order for a motion to be passed, you need approval of 3 commissioners. So that means your decision tonight must be unanimous. So what I would recommend is that we continue this appeal until we can have another commissioner appointed, or there is some other desire to reset the appeal if there's some type of change in someone's decision tonight that they're leaning towards. That way, I think Ms. Ryan's correct. We will actually have a formal decision by the city commission to address the appeal one way or the other. And so my recommendation would be to continue this and sort of, we would have to make it based on when a commissioner could be appointed for District 2.
Christy, it's William. I would interrupt. Since it would be a new commissioner who was not privy to this quasi-judicial proceeding, would it not have to completely start over?
Yeah, we would have to redo the appeal for that new commissioner. Now, obviously, if the parties wanted to voluntarily consent to that commissioner watching this entire Zoom proceeding, and that commissioner reviewing the record, they could certainly voluntarily agree amongst them to that and not have the appeal heard all over. Outside of their voluntary agreement to that type of procedure, we would have to entertain the entire appeal over again.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Commissioner Maxwell?
Attorney Goddard, I'm not terribly comfortable with that recommendation, only because, that puts that potential new individual in a situation to be lobbied by both parties.
Absolutely.
good word.
Good word.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with that. I just think that I'm just not comfortable with that. First of all, we're kicking the can down the road. That's number one. And I'm sure that the property owner and the appellant would like to move on and not kick the can down the road. Is there any reason why we can't kick this back to the Planning and Zoning Board and have them take another look at this?
You would need to make a motion to that effect.
We had that motion, but it also calls for discussion on the dais here. So Commissioner Robinson, we had that motion and you did not second it. Would you like to have a conversation about it?
Can I ask what how we could expedite a final decision, whether it would be if Planning and Zoning again approves this project, it's going to be appealed by one side, and if they don't, no, what we are at a difficult numbers position, so we have to wait for the consequences of not having another commissioner from District 2.
City attorneys, William, I'm going to interject here. In hearing Commissioner Robinson's concerns, would it be appropriate for both the appellant and the applicant to agree that if it were remanded back to the Planning and Zoning Board, whatever decision rendered there, if it were to be appealed, would go directly to court and not back to the commission?
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Robinson.
Chrissy,
Is that legal?
If the parties want to waive their rights to an appeal before the city commission, that's between the parties. I don't think it's the city's position to ask them to waive that right. If they want to agree to that, that's between them. The purpose of the appeal serves both the parties, the applicant, the affected parties, and the city to better understand what the issues will be before the circuit court. So it does serve a lot of different purposes, but it's ultimately between them.
okay. Commissioner Maxwell?
Well, that was my recommendation to remand it back to the Planning and Zoning Board.
Not a new motion.
It seems like the only way we're going to get through this tonight.
Okay, is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. It apparently is the only movement forward.
Okay, the motion is option 3 to send it back to Planning and Zoning. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Jeez.
We're going to take a 5-minute break and ask the mayor to join us. Thank you.
How long did that take? Is that an hour?
8:25.
Was that an hour?
Keith, can you put us on a break, please?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I have to move everyone first.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Happy holidays. Goodbye.
Keith, I see the mayor and commissioners are all back on the dais. If you are ready, I think we are.
Yep.
Madam Mayor, it's 8:29 and we are back live.
Good evening, everyone. Let's resume. This is December 15th, regular city commission meeting. We're going to move on because we had moved that out of new business. We're going to go back to commission liaison reports and comments. We've got a lot on the agenda, guys, and I know that went long. So if you'd like to give a brief update. Yeah.
I've got only two things. So our food distribution on Tuesdays, we got more funding and it has now been extended through January. There's much need in the community. And then the other thing, and Madam Mayor, I need a little leeway here. I may ask Christy, our attorney, to weigh in. Something very dear to my heart that I brought a while back, conversion therapy. Palm Beach County and Lake Worth Beach put a ban on conversion therapy, as did other cities. It has come back up, and may I ask that the city attorney bring that to your attention, because the Miami Beach is looking for cities to weigh in.
Okay, thank you so much.
Madam Attorney?
Yes, Madam Mayor, there is a challenge to ordinances that ban conversion therapy. As Commissioner Amoroso mentioned, we adopted one for the city of Lake Worth Beach in 2017, just like Palm Beach County. There's a challenge under the First Amendment to that ban. The city of Miami Beach and now the city of Miami are preparing a brief in support of the city of Boca Raton's brief and Palm Beach County's brief to challenge an appeal on that issue. What they're looking for is cities that have this ban in place against conversion therapy to support the briefs of these other cities and making sure that the 11th Circuit doesn't grant final say on an injunctive relief that would prohibit cities from having this ban in place. So what they're doing is reaching out to different cities to ask for, in this case, your consensus to add City of Lake Worth Beach to the amicus briefs in support of maintaining these types of bans.
And I ask for your support.
Yes.
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 You have consensus. Thank you, Madam Attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try to keep it very brief. Just wanted to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, however you celebrate the holidays. I hope that they are the best you've ever had, and you'll have the opportunity, if possible, to spend it with your loved ones and friends. I know it's difficult during these very challenging times with the pandemic, but I hope if it's all possible that you'll be with friends and family to some extent anyway during this holiday season. So happy holidays, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Commissioner Robinson?
Yes, I want to send our condolences to Mary Jane McKinnon for the loss of Mac, a great person and a perfect example of why Lake Worth is great because of its people, the men and women that represent Lake Worth. Mac will be missed. I'm sorry?
No Trojans.
Yes, he was a good Trojan. And the sixth night, happy Hanukkah to everybody, and happy Merry Christmas to everybody. But South Palm Park has a fantastic display in their median, and go down Lake or South Palm Way and see the lights.
And we won second place.
Did we?
And
did we really?
Look forward to the intense scheduling of our workshops on Airbnbs, race relations, artificial turf, and a public-private partnership for the Oceanfront Park. I still hope everybody wears their mask, washes their hands, and stays a safe distance. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Levin family go out to the McKinnons, to their family and loved ones. Just an amazing person, an amazing family, and so much of a very part of the fabric of this community. So that said, we had a couple of things that were going on. First of all, the Vice Mayor just mentioned that we came in second place, apparently. I hadn't heard that.
I just heard that today.
Did you? South Palm Park had lights, and then they were starting to go up. If you've ever been down South Palm Way in South Palm Park, you know, every holiday season, they decorate the median. The median's actually oh, look, yay. It's actually city-owned land, but there was an agreement back in the day. I think Chief Guthrie was part of that conversation about the city putting outlets out there so that the residents in the South Palm Park could go out and actually decorate. And there we go. There's our tree. There's a tree. We got to, anyway, one of the neighborhood presidents, Cheryl Rashkin, she asked if we would be interested in helping out because early on in the decorating phase, they weren't getting as many people. And I know it's rough because of the pandemic and everyone's kind of in a funk this year a little bit, or lots of people are. And she said, and I said, I'm going to call on my commissioners and vice mayors and pro tems, and we're going to all get together and we're going to decorate a median. You pick the median.
On the coldest night.
And it was the coldest night. It was that night that was like in the 40s. But everyone showed up. Thank you, thank you, thank you, my team and our team. Yay.
It was fun.
And we went out there and apparently we came in second place. So love you, South Palm Park, and thanks for including us. And I'm sure there'll be the start of many. I had a wonderful time, again, with these virtual celebrations that are going on. We're trying really hard. And let me tell you something, kudos to Leisure Services for coming up with creative ways to do the holidays. I'm so proud of them, so proud of the city and all of the staff that's involved in making these things happen, because it takes a technical genius, a rocket scientist, and I don't know what else to come up with these ideas. But I read The Night Before Christmas for the kids, and that was on the tree lighting night, and that was so much fun. We also are going to have our bike giveaway, and that's a big deal. It usually happens at the Cultural Plaza, and I usually get one or two or three of you guys up with me with time allows, and we read off the raffle numbers and call out the names and give away lots and lots of bikes to kids. And we can't do it at the Cultural Plaza. We can't get everyone out there screaming and holding onto the stage and doing those kind of things because it would be way too close and endanger the families. So I'll be doing it virtually on camera. So if you filled out a raffle, you better watch that video and watch for it, because we're going to give out all those bikes, and it is my pleasure to be able to do that for you. We also had a great event in Bryant Park. We had the Polar Express movie in Bryant Park, another Leisure Services, another one of their successes. And they had everyone socially distanced in their own little picnic spots, and staff set up. They brought them apple cider, hot chocolate, whatever it was, and brought it on over to them. 2 J's was there, and they were delivering food right to their blankets. And there were cookies and snow, and I think I got buried in the fake snow. And the kids, we had some fun, but it was just absolutely wonderful. So go on to our events page on our website, lakeworthbeachfl.gov. Go to the events page, check the calendar, and see what's happening around the holidays, because we've got lots of great things in store. I've got a TPA meeting. Last month we had it off, as they do every year. I've got one this Thursday, and it'll be our first in-person meeting for the TPA. A number of projects coming up and some really good things on the horizon for the new year. So I'm excited about that. Thank you all. Yes.
Did you forget about the house decorating?
Oh my goodness, yes, the house decorating contest. Just like we did for Halloween, we're going to be going around, all 4 of us, I hope, right, guys? We're going to be going around and we're going to be judging all the houses that applied, but you have to go on the website and you've got to register your house. There's a couple of different categories. I don't have them in front of me, but put whatever of those categories that you see, make sure you put your house into that category that you most fit, so we can judge you accordingly. I hate to have you in another category when you really could have won in a different one. And that happened. That happened maybe once or twice in Halloween. So look at those categories carefully. And thank you for reminding me. Okay. Public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have several. The first is from Lorian DeBruin at 1205 Lucerne Avenue, Unit C. Our CRA's mission statement is the Lake Worth Beach CRA is investing in our community to revitalize and rebuild our neighborhoods and commercial corridors. We are dedicated to maintaining the character of the city, responding to the community needs, and encouraging sustainable economic growth to improve the quality of life for our residents and the future health of the city. I have a concern about the development that has been proposed to the CRA on a parcel of land directly adjacent to my home, located on Northeast Street between Lake and Lucerne Avenues. I am a homeowner and have concerns with the proposed development. In an effort to maintain the charming historic feel of our city, I urge the Commission to consider not allowing a 4-story building development on land the CRA/city owns. I also urge you to consider additional rental properties that the developer has offered as not being the ideal. Would it not be preferred to have owner units in our downtown area, providing home ownership opportunities for folks that can walk downtown and patronize our businesses? I purchased a home here in Lake Worth Beach last year, and being that the home price doubled from the original purchase price in 2013, I'm now paying roughly double the taxes than the resident before me. I urge the mayor and commissioners to ask, is this development commensurate with the CRA's mission statement to maintain the character of the city and encourage sustainable growth and improve the quality of the life for our residents? I assert that the proposed development is not congruent with the CRA's stated mission for Lake Worth Beach. At your last meeting, Commissioner Robinson proposed 2 required public meetings specifically for developer community communication. When I reached out to the CRA about providing public input on this project, I was told public input was closed. Yet I understand the final deal has not been brought back to the CRA for approval as of yet. Will I have the opportunity to have public input at that time? How can we make the public input process better with CRA projects that affect our city? I appreciate your attention to the above matter. Sincerely, Lorraine DeBruin. This is from David Sims at 715 North L Street. Please, I understand that the mayor and several commissioners disagree with me and other city residents on certain issues, but I expect them to show us patience and respect during and after our comments are read. I am offended by the mayor's open display of disgust, contempt, and irritation while listening to residents' comments that took opposing positions to hers on development issues before the city. It's bad enough that residents like us don't have a say or input into decisions that affect the community, but at least we should be able to clearly express our opinions and positions about these decisions. And the concerns we express should be taken seriously by the Commission. Please be patient and listen intently and respectfully to all public comments aired. Sincerely, David Sims. The next is from Christopher McVoy. Christopher McVoy at 1514 15th Avenue North. During the December 1st, 2020 commission meeting, I was quite discouraged to listen to Commissioners Maxwell and Amoroso and the mayor. My discouragement came from their statements before and after the reading of public comments regarding Commissioner Robinson's proposal to require developers to meet with the city residents. One might expect elected officials to express a firm commitment to strengthening democracy by encouraging public input, and especially so regarding influential development decisions. Instead, Commissioners Amoroso and Maxwell and Mayor Triolo seemed highly eager to claim that there were already plenty of opportunities for public input. It was even more discouraging to listen to the mayor be dismissive in suggesting that the city clerk should have just summarized public comments. I've always understood that good government practices would urge municipal elected officials to welcome, not discourage, public comment from each and every individual resident. The commission's response to the reading of the considerable number of public comments was even more shocking. Listening to the weight of the municipal thoughtful comments, I naively expected that the commission would look to each other and acknowledge what they had just heard, recognizing that there was a real issue at hand. Instead, the commissioners and mayor did the opposite, doubling down and claiming there was no problem. Overall, a disappointing performance that can only diminish the public's trust in the majority of the elected city representatives. The next item is from Kim Stokes at 1321 North L Street. I wanted to express my concern about what I saw while I was watching the commission meeting on December 1st. It was obvious that numerous people expressed their concerns about the lack of input they have regarding the development of our downtown and historical district. Instead of welcoming the feedback, Mayor Pam, Commissioner Amoroso, and Commissioner Maxwell came off as dismissive and insulting. Lake Worth Beach is filled with amazing residents who care deeply about the city and should feel invited into discussions that involve the beach, the golf course, the downtown area, parks, and all other major attractions in the city. It is unrealistic to expect everyone who cares about these areas to check the agenda items for every meeting to see which meetings they should carve out time to attend, especially if there are up to 7 meetings that each cover multiple unrelated items. These meetings aren't designed for any kind of meaningful dialogue between the board and the residents and can be time-consuming. The city should be respectful of people's time if they're truly interested in engaging with the public. I also think it's offensive to suggest that residents were only interested in the color of the buildings or type of umbrella. These are obviously not their concerns, and if the developer waits until they have poured time and money into designing a project, those will be the only things left on the table to discuss. I agree with Commissioner Robinson that the developers should have to want to have the support of the community, especially when building on city-owned land with millions of dollars in incentives. I think the city should have been proactive in reaching out to its residents to talk about the potential changes coming to the downtown area, changes that could completely redefine the character of the city. Then the developer would walk into the project knowing exactly what is on the mind of the city and its residents. And I have a message, a comment card from Cliff Kohlmeyer of 503 First Avenue South. At the last City Commission meeting, the public expressed strong support for Commissioner Robertson's proposal that citizens have an opportunity for meaningful discussion prior to any major development in our city. The commissioner's response was unbecoming of elected officials, misrepresenting to the public that their 2-minute commentary before commission or unelected advisory board could substitute for public participation. The commission's response to public comments in the last meeting were insulting, and yet another example of how citizens feel disregarded by this commission. The next comment is from Catherine Kohlmeyer. I was of 503 First Avenue South. I was very disappointed at the resistance of the commissioners to the suggestion of more input from the public. From some of their remarks, they seemed to feel that there was a threat rather than a wish to participate. Keith, now I have comments from Sam Goodstein first and then Richard Stowe.
Okay, Sam, you should be able, Sam Goodstein, you should be able to unmute yourself and you should be able to talk now.
And it's
Thank
3
you.
minutes.
Do I get 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Awesome. I thought it was 2. All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor, fellow commissioners. I wish I was appearing to you in person. And I want to ask you, when is a meeting not a meeting? The answer is when no one shows up. It doesn't matter how many meetings you have for things. What matters is that you get the information out there. You make a pretty good case that there are a bunch of meetings before these events, but maybe the missing piece is accessibility. Tonight, for the first time, you have people like me who are actually speaking again in the meeting as we used to do. I've been in Zoom meetings with hundreds of people, so I know that you have the option, if you choose and direct your staff, to actually show, as we had when we met in the chambers that you sit in, to be able to see each other, to say, hey, I see that my friends are here. I see who's not here. I see there's interest in this. And That public participation for a small town like us is critically important. I'm very glad to be able to comment in person on the Zoom meeting. I feel that it's a burden on the city clerk to have to try and represent people. And I hope that we will try and do what we can to make things accessible to the public. When you come off as you did in a defensive way, it doesn't matter what your policy choices are, because you come off looking like people who don't care. It's important that we look like we care, because we're a small city. A lot of us are here for the long term, and we want to make it a place where everybody feels like they've been heard. Doesn't necessarily matter if they are heard in the way they think they are, but you have to give people the chance. So my suggestions are, number one, let me see who else is watching the Zoom meeting, which is within the technical possibilities. And two, make all those meetings that you say are accessible and easy, accessible and easy. Make the CRA meet in those chambers. Make the CRA listen to the people. The lack of transparency makes the questions of policy much more difficult for you. Don't hamstring yourselves. Thank you very much. Have a good night. And that was one heck of a judicial, quasi-judicial hearing. It would have been helpful if you'd had somebody seated for District 3. That would have been an easy solution. Think about it. Good night.
Okay, Richard Stowe, you should be able to talk now.
Thank you. My name is Richard Stowe. I live at 414 North Federal Highway. I've served on the City Tree Board for 7.5 years, 5.5 years as chair, and currently as vice chair. I speak on my own behalf. I simply ask that under Rule 8 of Rules of Provision, that Vice Mayor Amoroso, Mayor Pro Tem Maxwell, Commissioner Robinson, or Mayor Triolo motion and second to reconsider the Commission's December 1st decision to sell 1003 North F Street to the CRA due to, quote, new relevant information, unquote. Located next to a 10th Avenue sidewalk, 1003 North F Street is ideally situated and sized 10 feet by 135 feet for the city of Lake Worth Beach to utilize it as a native shade tree planter strip. The county conveyed this lot to the city in May 2010. I provided each commission member with 2 drawings. One shows that this lot could be converted to a planter strip that accommodates either 5 or 6 shade trees. The second drawing reveals that 1003 North F is one of a half dozen identically sized city-owned properties between North A Street and Dixie Highway that should be designated as shade tree planter strips. Planting a row of drought-tolerant native shade trees on each of these vacant lots would measurably improve aesthetics and property values on the Lake Worth Beach Avenue. It would improve the view for motorists driving to or from I-95, as well as provide much needed shade relief for pedestrians walking on the adjacent sidewalk. Based on this, quote, new relevant information, unquote, I implore the City Commission to reconsider its December 1st vote in order to provide a much needed setback full of shade trees that shades pedestrians, calms drivers, and serves as a template for similarly sized and located city properties on this Gateway Avenue.
Madam City Clerk, are there any others?
No, Madam Mayor, that's it.
Okay, seeing there are none, let's move on to approval of the minutes. Moved by the Vice Mayor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem. He beat you by like a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion. Vice Mayor, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Robinson. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Commissioner Robinson, you were aye?
Yes, I am looking forward to moving forward with the Public Works building. That's a good start
Okay, thank
in
you.
that consent.
Appreciate it. Public hearings. This is a second reading. We had the presentation the last time. It's ordinance number 2020-19. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 2020-19 of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 9 Buildings and Structural Regulations, Article 1 in general, Section 9-2 Building Code adopted by adopting the 2020 Building Code, amending Section 9-2.1 of the City of Lake Worth administrative amendments to the Florida Building Codes adopted by adopting by reference the City of Lake Worth Beach administrative amendments to the Florida Building Code 2020 edition, providing for severability, the repeal of laws and conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, I'm sorry, are there any public comment cards?
No, Madam Mayor.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to unfinished business. Discussion of appointment of City Commissioner for District 2. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, we don't, it's a discussion.
Discussion.
Discussion. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I just wanted to hear from the city attorney where we stand as far as appointing somebody and how the procedure may go.
Okay, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
As stated in the agenda item, the charter reads that if there are less than 6 months before the next regular city election, when the vacancy occurs, the city commission by a majority vote of the remaining members shall choose and appoint a successor to serve until a newly elected commissioner is qualified. That is pretty much the only guidance that you're given from the city charter about the appointment to fill District 2 seat that Commissioner Amari Hardy vacated from. It does say in the charter that all commissioners, except for obviously the mayor, have to reside in their district. So looking at this as a discussion, I think you have as your available options tonight to, one, you could certainly make a motion, and it has to be a motion that gets approved by at least 3 of you. And that's also in the charter that all motions have to be approved by at least 3. You could appoint someone tonight. By the charter, that person needs to reside in district number 2. That person could be someone who has gone through the qualifying process that ended, or that person could be someone who hasn't gone through the qualifying process. Another option you have available is to provide some direction to staff if you would like to do an official process of perhaps asking for applications, engaging in interviews, and setting up perhaps some type of special meeting to actually make the appointment. You also certainly have the option of thinking about this over the holidays and making a decision in 2021 on the appointment. These are all of your options. We have, based on the commission's previous direction, listed this item as a discussion because that was the direction that the commission gave to bring it as a discussion item for tonight. But you are not limited by that, and you can take official action tonight or direct staff of how you would like to proceed.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up?
I just wanted, based on that information, I wanted to make a motion to appoint Carla Bloxton with her position to start Monday, December 21st. I think that's next Monday. Just checking on my calendar. It's next Monday, the 21st. Yes.
Yes.
That's my motion.
You second? After watching the quasi judicial before us, you should all have in your minds how quickly I see it. It helped influence your decisions. Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Do we have any public comments?
Who made the second? I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem
Maxwell.
Maxwell.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just comment that, there are consequences to not making decisions. And this tonight's quasi hearing demonstrated it. The absence of representation up until now was a disappointment to residents of Lake Worth Beach. And I'm glad to appoint Carla Bloxon as commissioner.
Okay. City Clerk, did you have anything? Any public comment cards?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I think so too. I'm in step with you guys. I think I'm looking forward to it. I know Ms. Bloxon for many, many years. She's a devoted volunteer throughout many organizations.
Matriarch.
She's a matriarch. She's a volunteer. She's a cook extraordinaire. She's a for the children supporter. She's a people supporter, a Lake Worth Beach supporter. And I'm very excited about that nomination, Vice Mayor. So we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to our new business. Again, remember, A was the quasi judicial, so we've done that already. We're going to move on to ordinance 2020-21. It's a first reading, but it was something that we discussed first, brought in by Vice Mayor Amoroso and Commissioner Robinson. And it was a discussion we had in full the last time around in reference to the prohibition on distribution of plastic straws at city facilities.
I'll make a motion.
All right, first we need to have the ordinance read properly by the city attorney. Would you do that for me, Christy?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 2020-21 of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 15 offenses miscellaneous of the city's code of ordinance by creating a new Article 8 to be entitled Prohibition on Distribution of Plastic Straws at City Facilities, providing for exceptions, education, enforcement, and penalties, and providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, if I may just make one comment. Anytime we create a new offense, we do have a conversation with PBSO legal about it, because the way we've drafted this is it could be enforced by PBSO. I think the intent is to have it enforced through an educational program and through code enforcement. But we have drafted it so PBSO, should they choose to, could also enforce it.
But this ordinance is only for city facilities.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
And to the best of my knowledge, pretty much everybody has complied or will comply, so.
Yes,
Okay, so,
yes.
Vice Mayor, you made the motion, but I did not have a second. Second, okay. Are there any public comment cards, Madam City Clerk?
No, there's not.
Seeing there are none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Long time coming. Item C, resolution number 57-2020, approving the agreement with the supervisor of elections for the March 2021 election.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any public comment cards?
Madam Mayor, if I may, real quick.
There are no public comment cards, but Christy needs to speak.
All right, Chatty Christie.
Sorry, briefly, I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and that's why it's under new business.
Okay.
Because of COVID, the supervisor of elections has provided the options to the cities to use the mail in ballot process. It used to be called, what was it called, Debbie? The absentee ballot. Now it's called
vote by mail.
Right. So we have, because of COVID, checked off in the agreement that the city of Lake Worth Beach wants to use the vote by mail process. And just as an FYI, so we're all on the same page, this may increase the cost of the election if more folks ask for these mail-in ballots than previously done. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention so that you know that that's how we're proceeding with this election, because you do have the option of not using that process.
Okay, now a question for you. I know in the past, under the previous supervisor of elections, that we had to take on our own operation and cost for certain functions of an election. Has that changed since the new supervisor has taken?
No, not really. The new supervisor of elections is to some extent more amicable to work with in terms of working out some kinks in the process, because there's an awful lot, as you guys know, that goes into the election. They're trying to, though, make sure that they have all their costs covered when they essentially help conduct a municipal election. Those costs are increasing some, just like all costs always increase. But the biggest cost expenditure that may increase for the city is the request for additional mail-in ballots. And because we still have the COVID pandemic, we do anticipate that the request for vote by mail will increase, which will then turn to an increase to the city in the election.
Okay, still looking for the answer to that question though, which is which portion of the operations that the supervisor of elections provides for other municipalities are they not providing for us? Maybe that's a city clerk question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. It's across the board. She's providing the same level of service for all cities, but the clerk's office still has to take on, you know, a lot of the poll workers, additional works, paying for the PPE at the polling locations, paying the poll workers, in addition to paying the supervisor of elections for all that they do for the municipal election. But that's across the board for all cities. That's my understanding. Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the charges are all the same. They just vary depending on your size of city.
Right. And how many people ask for mail-in ballots? And with COVID, there's a possibility that there could be more.
Well, again, back to what was the thing that happened when Susan Booker, I'm just looking for that answer. What was taken away from us that it wasn't taken away from other municipalities, and has that been remedied?
Excuse me for a second. The only thing I think that she's talking about is that Susan Booker didn't want to serve on our canvassing board, but Wendy Sartori Link has agreed to serve on our canvassing board. It's going to be me, Wendy, and William William Brown, our internal auditor.
Okay.
Yes, that's been resolved.
Oh, that's been resolved. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. I didn't question. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a question. So this resolution is going to require the supervisor of elections sent to every single voter on the voter roll?
No. If I may explain,
please.
The vote by mail initiative is really no different than how we used to do the absentee ballots. You still have to contact the supervisor of elections for Palm Beach County to request a vote by mail ballot. They will not send them out to all voters or all registered voters. They still have to send in the request. They just don't know at this time how many folks will actually request those mail by vote or mail-in ballots. They already have some requests because at the beginning, before the presidential election, you could actually go to the supervisor of elections website and opt in to receive those types of ballots for the next 2 years. So they already have some requests for these ballots for the city's March 2021 election. As additional requests come into the supervisor of elections, she will then mail those ballots to those requesters.
Madam Mayor.
Please.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I guess I'm a little bit confused over what are we talking about here? I mean, if it's essentially the same, why are we using, why is there a different terminology being used?
They just changed it, and I think in part due to COVID, to try to publicize that everybody had this right under the absentee thing, but they didn't take advantage of it, because you used to have to say you were going to be out of state or you weren't going to be around during the election. Now you just have to simply request the ballot and mail it back in to vote.
Well, that's always been the case, but thank you for clarification.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Just for the record, I'm not sure if I questioned you, City Clerk. Were there any public comment cards?
There were not.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. Okay, we're moving on to the Lake Worth Electric Utility Consent Agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have a city attorney report.
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
City manager, hello there. Are you?
Acting
Acting city manager?
Madam Mayor, I do not have a report.
Okay, seeing that you don't, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Get well, Mike.
Second,
Get well, Mike.
do I have a second?
Hurry back, please.
Second,
Thanks, guys. I actually sat through it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you so much.
Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy